And welcome to the February 18th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. In accordance with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this public meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals is physically closed in order to avoid public group congregation. There are alternative measures in place to provide public access. The meeting is being televised via Falmouth Community Television, and real-time public comment can be addressed to the board utilizing the Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. This application allows users to view the meeting and send a comment or question to the chair. For the Zoom login instructions, you can go to www.falmouthma.gov/ZBA. I'll introduce the board at this time. My name is TJ Hurry. I'm the chair of the board. Ken Foreman is the vice chairman. Bob Dugan is the board's clerk. Scott Zielinski is a full voting member. Ed Van Kuren is a full voting member as well. Mary Berry is an associate member. And also with us tonight is Noreen Stockman, who is the zoning administrator, Ashley DeMello, who is the recording secretary for the night. And from the Falmouth IT department, we have Justin Shanahan and Adriana Pantano, and our friends at Falmouth Community Television as well. The Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with applying the zoning bylaws, which have been approved by town meeting and the Attorney General's office for the Commonwealth. We consider requests for special permits, variances, and appeals. All decisions that the board makes are made through the public hearing process. The board's goal is to hear testimony from the applicant and also from the public, and to allow a full and fair discussion of the project prior to rendering a decision. To begin each hearing, the clerk will read the public announcement of the hearing and then present any pertinent information from the file, such as referrals from town departments and summarizing correspondences to the board. The applicant or the applicant's representative will then have 15 minutes to make a presentation, and time may be extended by vote of the board. The board will then question the applicant, and the public will be invited to comment as well after that. We remind you that public comment should only be directed at the project itself. We ask you to please refrain from making any personal or derogatory statements. Public comment can include an opinion in favor or in opposition, or it might just simply be a question about the nature of the project. The chair will limit discussion in the interest of time in the event that comments become repetitive. All members of the public wishing to speak should wait to be recognized at the appropriate time during each hearing. I will open it up to public comment and utilizing the Zoom app feature. And again, Zoom is available at www.falmouthma.gov/ZBA. Again, at the appropriate comment in the night, I will ask members of the public wishing to speak to please click the raised hand icon of the Zoom app. And once you are elevated, we ask you to provide your name and address for the record. And we typically give people 2 minutes to address any questions, comments, or concerns that they may have. The board will then either close or continue the hearing. When the board is satisfied that enough information has been presented by testimony and in the file to make a decision, by motion and vote of the board, the hearing will be closed. In the alternative, the board may continue the hearing to a future date and time. After the hearing is closed, no more testimony may be taken. And as for board discussion and decisions, the board may then further discuss the project among ourselves and make a motion to deny or approve would be made and voted upon. The motion will include a summary of key findings and conditions. An affirmative vote of 4 members, which is a supermajority, is required for approvals of motions on special permits, variances, and appeals. A split vote, such as a 3-2 vote, would be a failure to carry and would result in denial of the project. Under Massachusetts general law, if a special permit is denied, the applicant cannot return to the board for 2 years unless the project is substantially different. So turning to our agenda for the night, we do have public comment, 2 continuations, no new public hearings, and a few items on our open meeting agenda. So first up for tonight is public comment. This public comment period is meant for anything that is not on the agenda. So stay put if you do have any questions about any actual applications before us tonight. So if there is anyone out there with public comment for something that is not on the agenda, go ahead and click the raised hand icon using the Zoom app, and we will get to you shortly. Okay. Not seeing anyone out there for public comment, we'll go ahead and move on to our continuations. First on the agenda, we have application 72-20 Murphy, 40 Oyster Pond Road in Falmouth. And if we could please elevate Attorney Kevin Clower for the applicant. And while that's being done, I should mention that the voting members on this project are myself, Ken Foreman, Bob Dugan, Ed Van Kuren, and Scott Zielinski. All right, Attorney Clower, looks like you've been elevated. Welcome back.
Good evening, Mr. Hurry, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kevin Clower. I'm an attorney here in Falmouth, and I represent the applicants, Brendan and Sarah Murphy, the owners of 40 Oyster Pond Road. We've been before you 2 meetings previously on this matter, so I won't belabor the point. But we
Attorney Clower, I hate to interrupt, but just to make sure that we have Ed Van Kuren with us. Ed, are you with us?
Yes.
All right. Can you elevate? Can you turn on your video? I think it's off right now.
Mine?
Yep,
I can
yours.
see it from here.
We're not seeing you. And is anyone else seeing him?
No.
No? Oop, we moved around a bit.
Yeah, I can see it here.
That is strange. Noreen, do you know for open meeting law if we have to have Ed's camera on, or is audio okay?
I think audio is sufficient.
All right. Sorry about that, Attorney Clower. Just trying to make sure that we're playing by the rules here.
That's okay. That's okay. As I was saying, we are seeking to raise and rebuild the existing non-conforming garage at the property. Since our last meeting, we did submit the previously submitted revised site plan to the Conservation Commission. I believe that this board received confirmation from Jennifer Lincoln today that there were no issues relative to the proposed garage or the changes to the plans of the proposed garage. And we also submitted revised floor plans for the garage, which eliminated the shower and the bathroom, reducing that from a full bathroom down to a half bath to address some of the concerns expressed by the board. Otherwise, the plans remain the same. The proposed garage is in the same location and footprint. There's no change to the setback or lot coverage. We are eliminating an existing bedroom in the house, and the bedroom count will remain at 4. The proposal does not create any new nonconformities. The existing non-conforming side yard setback is unaffected, and it otherwise conforms to the applicable setback and lot coverage requirements. I believe we've responded to the board's questions and concerns that have been presented at the last hearing, hoping to move this forward, and I'm happy to address any questions that you might have at this time.
All right. Thank you, Attorney Clower. We'll turn it to board questions. Bob, do you have anything?
Yeah, so Attorney Clower, I had asked to see some kind of a grade on how you're going to be handling the step since there's no longer a step. Do you have any of that?
So we do have the engineer on the project is with us tonight. If we could elevate Matt Costa.
Sure. If we can go ahead and do that. All right, Mr. Costa, you've been elevated. You just need to unmute yourself and turn on your video if that's possible.
Good evening, Matt Costa for the record. So with regard to the step, trying to pull up the plan here. I do believe we called out a couple grades there. When you're talking about 6 inches, this is the equivalent of a couple of bags of loam from Mahoney's.
So, and how do you keep that in place?
It's literally 6 inches, just spread around some loam and raising the grade a little bit.
So when you submitted to conservation on the removal of the step and also that shower unit, did you submit to them that you would be doing some kind of a grade change for that location?
Yeah, I actually talked to Jen today about it, and she was going to talk to Noreen and confirm there's no issue there.
So I guess to Noreen, did you get an additional email besides the one that we had that they just saw no step? That she had looked at a grade change?
So I believe the email that I got from Jennifer Lincoln today was confirming that conservation was okay with the garage. If there is a variation in plans at the time of the building permit application from the plans that conservation has, they would require an applicant to go back to them. So I would imagine that as the building permit application comes around, that they will be double checking that at that time as well.
And then, Mr. Clower, can you tell me how you handled the 2 means of egress? I noticed on the plan, it still had the note from the building commissioner that said that room would not be used as a bedroom.
Mm-hmm. So the building commissioner had confirmed to us that with that notation and with that intent, it only requires 1 means of egress. And to address Mr. Foreman's concern that he felt it was intended for that purpose, we did remove that portion of the bathroom, including the shower. But there is 1 means of egress shown in the plans, which is what the building commissioner had indicated would be sufficient. And we will be applying for a building permit, and if it does not meet building code, we simply won't be able to get our building permit. We'd have to amend the plans at that point.
So isn't as far as the health department, they're requiring that meets the definition of a bedroom, so we have to treat it as a bedroom?
The Title V definition of a bedroom is different than what the building commissioner is concerned with for sleeping purposes. It is a bedroom under Title V requirements, which is why we're eliminating one of the existing bedrooms in the house. However, it's not intended to be used as such. You can have a room that might meet the definition of a bedroom but isn't used for that purpose, which is exactly what's happening here.
I guess my only concern is we seem to be going with one definition with the health department. You've actually removed a bedroom from the main house. So the main house now only has 3 bedrooms, not 4. Health department is saying this is the 4th bedroom, but because you've got an issue with a second means of egress as a bedroom, you're then having the building department look at it as if it isn't being considered a bedroom. I know that we had a general meeting with the building department with what some of their requirements are on permits. And he did explain during that meeting that if the room wasn't being used as a bedroom, it was just being used as an office, something like this would meet code. But if we were looking at it as a bedroom, it wouldn't meet code. So I guess, are we to look at it as if it was a bedroom and that's why you're removing the one in the main house? Or are we to be looking at it that it's not ever going to be used as a bedroom? So there's really no need to do changes in the main house. I mean, I assume you wouldn't want to get any kind of a deed restriction since they're reducing the number of bedrooms in the main.
So it meets the technical definition of a bedroom. However, the intent is not to use it in that manner. The building commissioner has expressed to us that if that's the intent and if it's noted on the plans as such, that he's satisfied with 1 means of egress. It has to meet the building code. We have to get a building permit. And I think that, the question you're asking, I think goes beyond kind of the parameters of a special permit decision. It meets a Title V definition of a bedroom. That doesn't mean it is to be used as a bedroom. The current bedroom that's being eliminated in the house is a TV room. That's how it's used, and that's how it's going to continue to be used. There are any number of rooms that might qualify under a technical definition of a bedroom, but aren't used as such. However, because we want to comply with regulations, we are removing that bedroom from the house because this counts from a technical standpoint, but it's not to be used in that way. And that's what the applicant intends, and they've noted that on the plans, and that's the representation they're making. And ultimately, we'll need to apply for a building permit and meet the building code and the building code standards. And if we can't, then we have to come back and modify the decision.
Were there any thoughts about moving the drywall towards the front of the property, as was mentioned in the last meeting?
No, it's not necessary.
All right, that's all the questions I have. I'll just do my remaining during the board discussion.
Sounds good, Bob. Thank you. Mary, any questions?
I have no questions.
Thank you, Mary. Ken, anything?
No, I think I understand what's going on.
Very good. Scott?
Hi, Matt. I get you guys are putting the loam down so you can plant it, and the seed's going to hold it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Scott. And Ed, any questions?
No, I have more answer.
All right. Thank you, Ed. All right. And my issues have already been addressed by previous questions, so we will turn it to public comment. If anyone out there has a question, comment, or concern regarding this project, go ahead and click the raised hand icon using the Zoom app, and we will elevate you in a moment. Okay, we do have one. If we could elevate Miss Wendy Bustler, please. All right, Miss Bustler, you've been elevated. You'll just have to unmute yourself and turn on your video.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, my last name is pronounced Bistler. I think
My apologies. I am terrible with last names, so my apologies.
It's not pronounced the way it's spelled. We have longtime friends who still mispronounce our names, so that's fine. So I just want to, okay, Wendy Bistler, I'm the executive director of Oyster Pond Environmental Trust, and we own the property behind 40 Oyster Pond Road, including the majority of the vernal pool that's in the backyard. And I just want to say again that how important and fragile vernal pools are, that anything that happens, it's just not the pool itself, but it's the surrounding uplands that can very much impact the quality of the pool. And that any disturbance of either the water, the soil, the vegetation can impact the vernal pool. And that's why the town, you may have in their regulations for wetlands, require at least 100-foot buffer from the vernal pool. And any activity within that 100 buffer should really be looked at very carefully. Given that, I do have a couple of questions. One, I noticed that there are some trees that are very close to the edge of the garage. And I'm wondering if any of those need to be trimmed back to elevate that building to 2 stories, because any kind of change in the trees around the vernal pool could change the light that reaches the pool, and that could change conditions in the pool. So I'm curious if you know, Mr. Klauber, if they need to trim any of the trees.
Should I respond now, Mr. Hurry, or wait till after Ms. Bessler's done with her?
Do you have any other questions, Ms. Bessler?
Yeah, I also wondered, do you know if they're going to air conditioning that bedroom upstairs, or the office upstairs? Because wouldn't that require some kind of something on the outside to hold the unit on the ground? And my other thing, the drywall, I know Mr. Costa had mentioned that it wasn't a problem, but I wonder if you could explain how that would happen. So those are my questions, please. Thanks.
Thank you. Attorney Clower?
Sure. So I can certainly speak to the trees. I remember the first hearing, we discussed that there is a tree, which is, I believe, the base of which is on the neighbor's property. Some limbs will have to be trimmed back. And that neighbor did submit a letter of support for this project. They're well aware of it. I'm not aware of any other trees that need to come down, but I can't say that with 100% certainty. But I know that that one did need to be limbed up a little bit. And I unfortunately do not have the answer regarding the air conditioning of the property. I know that it is intended to have heat. I cannot speak much further than that.
And the
I'm
drywall.
not exactly sure what the question was about the drywall.
Well, it's basically you're concentrating all the water coming off the roof, even though it's underground, and it's because everything is uphill from the vernal pool. It will go down towards the vernal pool.
I think it will go down towards the groundwater, and it won't flow directly towards the vernal pool. We found sandy
Okay.
soils. We did the septic 2
Okay.
houses down, and there are very sandy soils about 8 to 10 feet down. So it will eventually hit sandy soils and go straight down.
Okay. I mean, obviously the vernal pool is there because it's not sandy soils. There must be some kind of.
Yeah, I mean, we did have it approved by conservation. It is 70 feet away from the vernal pool, as is the tree that's going to be limbed up. So I think that the impacts are not measurable.
Okay. Well, those are my comments and questions.
All right, thank you. And anyone else out there who has a question, comment, or concern, click the raised hand icon and we will elevate you in a moment. All right, not seeing anyone. Back to the board then.
Mr. Chair, if I could make a request, given that there's been quite a bit of discussion about this already, if the board would be willing to have a discussion prior to closing the hearing, it would be greatly appreciated.
Sure, and I have a couple of follow-up questions. Ms. Bustler inspired me to ask a couple after checking the map. I didn't see any mechanics laid out in the proposed garage. Is there any?
Let me see here. There was a storage area, which I believe would serve to house any mechanicals that were needed for the garage
Okay, and that was the storage proposed.
on the first floor.
Okay, on the first floor. Was there one on the second as well? Is that where the bath was being taken
Where the
out?
shower was eliminated, that is also shown as a storage area. Closet. Board games and whatnot.
Okay, so just making sure that I have this right. On A1.1, that's that storage space, that's
That could house mechanicals, yes.
8 by 6?
It
and
could
then
serve as a closet and mechanicals, yes.
Understood. And then the newly proposed storage on the second floor, plan
It's just a simple closet.
A1, 2,
Mhm.
just a simple closet there. Okay.
Yep.
All right. And Attorney Clower, remind me, was this the project with the nonconformity, the setback off of the garage with the overhang?
There's a side, the side yard setback is, I believe, 3.8 feet off the garage to the side yard line. And that neighbor, that closest neighbor who's affected by that nonconforming setback is the one who submitted the letter of support at the last hearing.
Okay. And that setback is remaining the same?
Exactly the same.
Just making sure we got that on record because I couldn't quite remember. Okay. Anything else from the board? Any other follow-up questions?
I guess just for confirmation, so there'll be no mechanicals on the exterior?
Not that I'm aware of. And if we had to put some, I suppose we'd have to come back, and that could certainly be a condition.
All right. Any other follow-up questions from the board? All right. Attorney Clara, I think you were asking if we could discuss the project prior to closing.
It would be greatly appreciated, yes.
All right. Would anyone like to start us off if anyone does want to have a conversation about the project?
I guess I would just make the same comments I made before. I just don't think you can go under two different definitions for this bedroom situation. I understand what the technical is, but the board has to look at this of what the use is. And if they're removing a bedroom from the main house, specifically opening a doorway so that there no longer is 4 bedrooms in the main house, then they're going to be able to use this area as sleeping area. And if that becomes sleeping area, we look at it as a bedroom. That access, that 2 means of egress, does not apply for anything that's sleeping area. It just doesn't. There's just no way you can make it work. There's other issues that come up if it's sleeping areas, like we had our discussion about generalities with the building commissioner. There's firewalls that have to be put up because the building is less than 5 feet from the main structure. So there are other issues. I think when the board looks at this, you have to look at it as if the garage space needs to be considered a bedroom. And does this work as a bedroom? I know there was, the engineer explained that he doesn't see that there'll be any issues with the drywall at all. I'm not an engineer. I'll just go by what he said. But the drainage is being pushed towards the area where the vernal pool backs up to, when there are ways you could move the drainage towards the front of the house. Regarding the information that came from conservation, I did ask a question today because we did get the email that just said we approve of no step in the removal of the shower. I asked the administrator to check if they looked at any grade changes at all. Normally, I wouldn't have any concerns with the grade change, but again, you're dealing with the vernal pool, which, as we know from a lot of other projects that deal with vernal pools, is such a sensitive ecosystem that very minor changes can affect it. So, as presented right now, I would not be in favor. I would like to see that if you want to use it as a bedroom over the garage, then you have the building commissioner show how you can set that up with the 2 means of egress as a bedroom over the garage. I think it's more important for us to look at what the health department says they consider a bedroom, because that's what we've been going by with changes in the main house. And that's what you need to go by. I would like to see if there was any way to get some of that drainage towards the front versus the back. Or if the drywall satisfies, then submit us something in writing just showing that it will not have any effect. As far as the plan goes, it is very unusual to see plans that don't show any mechanicals. So I'm going to assume that the mechanicals were mislabeled. It's going to be the utility room at the bottom. If this goes forward, then you'd have to update the plans to show that that's where the mechanicals were. There were statements that there may not be any mechanicals on the exterior of the building, but the applicant's representative can't make a statement to that because he's not sure. He doesn't think there will be. But we've seen other projects where they put condensers on the building themselves. Where's the condenser going if it's going to go in the building? Are you going to be attaching it to the nonconformity side? Are you going to be attaching something to the side where the vernal pool is? The other subject matter that hasn't been touched on tonight, because we're focusing just on the garage, is along in the conversation that came from conservation regarding the step. They did mention that the deck on the main house hadn't had a permit and hadn't gone through conservation, so they'll need to work with the owner for mitigation plantings. If we're looking at a project that currently has something on the property itself that didn't have a permit and doesn't meet current codes, I would think something like that would have to be taken care of before you go on to give somebody a permit from somebody else. So, I could see using space over the garage. I just think in this case, they're trying to make everything fit in. And for me, the explanations at this point, it just doesn't work.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Anyone else?
I think at some point, applicant's testimony should mean something, and not every single thing should be questioned about their intent. That's why we give sworn testimony. And I think that at some cases, we start to get ourselves in the weeds after we think that we know better than maybe the health agent or the code enforcement officer. We have a job here to do. I am fully willing to go with what the health agent said and the interpretations by the other boards. And if they don't do what they're supposed to do by the letter of the decision, then that's on them. That's how I feel about it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Scott. And I think Ken was looking to unmute himself, but then we lost your video, Ken. There you
Yeah, I
are.
was looking to unmute and I guess I inadvertently unvisualized. So first of all, I appreciate that they took the full shower, they, reduced the bathroom to half bath. I think that goes a long way towards convincing me that, at least someone might sleep up there occasionally, but that it's not going to be really a bedroom in the sense of a continuously used sleeping area. I think we have a structural issue with the difference in what the building commissioner defines as a bedroom and what the Board of Health defines as a bedroom, and our bylaws don't make it clear what we should do really. But I hate to penalize the applicant for what is not really their fault. I mean, that discrepancy is not something that they're responsible for. I do agree that, the drywall, I'm not sure why it's located where it's located. Maybe Matt could try to clarify that a little for us, because it seems to me trying to get it further away from the vernal pool would be good. And I guess the other issues here do not, again, concern this application, issues with the deck. So, obviously they're going to have to be resolved, but that's not part of this decision.
All right, thank you, Ken. Let's see who else. Mary, did you have any comment on this?
Other than what has already been said, I have serious concerns about the difference between saying that the soil for a house or two down the way was sandy, therefore this one would be, and the OPET statement from Wendy that the vernal pool is not that. So that concerns me. And as I said in the very first meeting, to me, a vernal pool is extremely fragile. And this one is a certified vernal pool, which puts it in a different kind of a category. And therefore, all I can say is what I said the first time, which was, if anything happens to it, it's gone for good. And I just don't feel comfortable. The limbing of the trees, I think, as she pointed out, that's also a concern. That's it.
Thank you, Mary. And Ed.
Chairman, I have one more for Mr. Costa.
Sorry, if we could just let Ed chime in. I don't think we got to him yet. I'll say my piece and then we can go back to the applicant. Sorry, Ed, go ahead.
And I have nothing to add.
All right.
I have nothing to add.
Thank you, Ed. Would you be in favor of the project, Ed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Ed. And I tend to agree with Ken. I think we can conditionally or appropriately condition the project that the proposed space above would not be used for a sleeping area. It doesn't happen with every application, but on page A12, There's a specific notation that even says that the room not be used for sleeping purposes. Kind of goes beyond this immediate project, but I know the board has made a lot of headway in terms of discussions with the building commissioner with Title V versus what the building code considers a bedroom. And I think we're heading in the right direction of at least understanding that and conditioning projects appropriately, or at least identifying those issues and going forward. So that's where I stand. But Mr. Costa, if you could clarify, and I'm sorry, I think Scott brought it up, and I have the same concern, and I think Ken did too, about the drainage, if it could be moved at all, those dry wells there.
Sure, absolutely. The dry well is where it is because we don't want to be putting it close to a full foundation. That could create some issues with a wet basement. The dry well and the grading are conservation issues. I don't see them being zoning issues. We reviewed this. I personally reviewed this exact plan with Jen. We submitted it to her weeks ago. I talked to her about it today. She said she would be calling Noreen on it. They approved it. There's no issues. So that right there should give you confidence in the fact that the literally de minimis grading and the addition of the dry well are not a concern for conservation. You can think of it this way. The dry well is actually an improvement because what's happening is that the water is running off the structure now onto the ground. And it's the surface runoff is really what you want to be concerned about for stormwater affecting wetlands. The addition of the dry well is the major benefit here in that it's going to get that water down into the ground and it's not going to run off towards the wetland. So I think the board can be confident that that's not an issue with respect to conservation. And it's definitely not a zoning issue. So I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. Any follow-up questions from the board regarding the dry wells?
I do.
Scott? Go ahead,
I was
Scott.
going to say that I would ask Mr. Costa if he agreed. Once water goes down into a dry well, and if it's in sandy soils, it only migrates 5 feet out before it goes straight down. So, I mean, that's what they're doing. They're capturing it. And I would ask Mr. Costa again for the record, isn't it usually the case that of a vernal pool, the migration of organics and silt cover an otherwise sandy area over time to create like a liner which holds the water to support that pool? It doesn't always necessarily have to be a clay area to hold the pool. It can have a layer of sediment that supports the water.
Yeah, so vernal pool is really classified by the species that are in it, not so much the geological structure. There's a number of different ways there could be standing water in a location. What you just mentioned is one of them. I don't know what the exact case is for this particular vernal pool over here, but either way, it is being protected. The project, if approved and built as designed, would be an improvement.
And Concom's okayed it.
Yes.
Okay. It's all for me, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Scott. Any other follow-up questions from the board? All right, seeing none, does anyone want to make a motion?
Make the motion to close.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Is there a second for the motion to close? Thank you, Ed. Okay, motion to close made by Scott and seconded by Ed. We'll do a roll call vote. Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Scott?
Scott Zelinski.
Ed?
Ed Van Kuren and I.
Ken?
Ken Forman, aye.
Thank you, Ken. And TJ Hurry, aye. So the hearing is closed. No more testimony may be taken. And how would the board like to proceed?
I'll make a motion to approve with conditions.
All right, thank you, Scott.
Second.
Thank you, Ken. Findings? Go ahead, Scott, if you want to start us off, if you got any.
In my opinion, that I don't feel like it's more detrimental. We're finding that it's a replacement of an existing footprint of the structure. It's not new construction.
So setbacks remain the same.
No increase in setbacks. That's right. They're improving the drainage by increasing downspout drainage. They're reducing bedroom count in the main house to 3.
Yeah, they're going from, is it 4 to 3?
In the main
That's
house.
right.
So you may want to add just to that finding that's
bedroom in
you
the
may
garage.
you may want to add to that finding that's to meet the health definition.
Yep. Meet the Board of Health Title V.
I think we could be explicit in the findings about the fact that there's a discrepancy between the building commissioner's determination and the Board of Health, and that we accept the building commissioner's determination.
Sure, let's go ahead and do that. And just be explicit that the proposed...
Regarding, we accept the building commissioner's determination regarding the fact that there is not need for a second means of egress. How about that?
Sounds good.
So then you just want to add to that finding that the building commissioner has notated on the plan that there can be no sleeping area over the garage. Because that's what he's basing his exterior access to.
Right.
And that the plans reflect that.
And there was testimony that reflect that as well.
Exactly.
Put a finding that testimony showed that there would be, the mechanicals would be located in the downstairs, in the lower level of the garage closet that's shown that 6x8 room. And that no mechanicals will appear on the exterior of the building.
Concom agent made us approved of it.
Yep. Approval by the conservation. I think that's
And on
important.
the Concom, since it was submitted to the file, just you could use that email that just said they approved of the removal of the step and the removal of the shower, because that's all we have.
Thank you, Bob.
You want to put in 240-3C because it's a raise and reconstruct.
All right. Dealing with that existing setback.
And I don't know, Noreen, on the setbacks because it wasn't put in the plan. I don't know if that setback is actually to the roof overhang or to the sidewall.
I think we're assuming it's to the roof overhang, right?
I think
Yeah,
you
but
said
the plans
roof
look
overhang.
like it's to the sidewall.
Setbacks are always to the sidewall. You don't set back to roof overhangs. It's always to the sidewall.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. All right. Anything else for findings?
I think you might want to just put a finding only because they submitted it to the file with conservation that this board is not discussing it, but the deck on the property does need to go back to conservation for approval since there was no permit taken.
Sure. That's a good finding. Thank you, Bob. Anything else for findings?
Put the property can be used only as single family use. Also put a, even though it's not in the plan, put a I guess we'll do that with conditions on the cooking facilities.
All right. Shall we move on to conditions then? All right, let's do that. Conditions?
The plan submitted.
So if you want to do on the per plans, do it as revised. Noreen can put the revised dates and they have to relabel the closet that's on the plan. That's easy enough to do.
Good call, Bob.
I think you should condition it that there's no sleeping, the room above the garage can't be used as a bedroom or sleeping facilities per the notation on the plans by the building department.
Very good.
So that'll be in the findings and the conditions.
You need to
Right.
put in the conditions that, again, the property can only be single-family use. You want to just add to the condition, even though it's per plans, the cased opening on the bedroom in the main house?
Mm-hmm. Bob, did you already
Uh,
mention no cooking facilities?
No, we'll put, yeah, we should put one into that in anyways, just so it's not considered an apartment.
Yep.
There's a clause that we use regarding dry wells, that they're inspected while open. I know that engineering or building, we're looking at them. In this case, we should probably have conservation do that.
Is that even part of their inspection procedure?
Well, it's usually engineering department, but where conservation has, I mean, I don't know how these
You know,
are
we
put
can't,
in.
we can't dictate to conservation how they inspect, can we?
I'm not sure if
Well,
we can.
yes.
Yeah, so I did have a conversation with conservation, and actually where this project is under their jurisdiction, they would be doing inspections for soil erosion and sediment control. So I think they'd be willing to review the dry well as well.
There you
Very
go.
good. Thank you, Noreen.
And then condition then per conservation, the sediment erosion controls.
All right. Anything else for conditions?
No, but in the findings, make sure you notate what the building height is.
I think that was at a previous hearing. I don't have it in front of me. Do we have that?
Should be
I
on
can-
the
I see.
on the architectural plan.
18, 11th, and 3/4. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Yeah. All right.
Could you also put in a finding that this structure is within 3 feet of the main house?
Sure. All right. Anything else?
Let me just double check the referrals for a second.
Sure. Go ahead.
We're certainly going to have construction times as usual.
All right.
Could we get some clarity on that setback issue? I think that is actually meaningful if there's significant overhangs.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I know that on other projects we went to the overhang versus the sidewall. So
Well, the definition in the bylaws is it's the distance between the lot line and the line beyond which a structure may be built or an allowed use may occur. So it's kind of ambiguous in the zoning bylaw. Now, maybe the building commissioner has defines it in a certain way. And I just,
We're talking
Not
about
sh-
roof eaves. So like overhangs, if you had an overhanging balcony, there's no exemptions for that. You would dimension to that. But for roof eaves, for this garage, the roof runs past the sidewall. You dimension to the sidewall. So unless we're calling out an overhang or you see an overhang dimensioned on a building, you can always assume the dimensions are running to the side, the wall of the building. Does that make sense?
it makes sense. It's concerning to me because you could build right near the property line and the eave could be hanging over your neighbor.
Yeah, there's allowance for, I believe it's, I have to pull out the code, but I think it's up to 24 inches. For
But
that.
that's in the building code. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
I raised the issue not just for this project again, but as we go through zoning recodification, I think we need to make sure these things like these differences in bedroom definition, for example, and differences in what the setback really means get clarified, because You know, that we have.
Become cantilevered second floors.
Yeah, right. but
Yeah, cantilever starts changing the whole
That's,
game.
Matt agrees with that, but I'm
Right.
just,
All right. We did close the hearings, but thank you for the clarification, Mr. Coster and Ken, for bringing that up, definitely.
So, Mr. Chairman, then also add in that the water service must have a minimum size of 1 inch,
Water service, okay.
and that's per the water department.
All right. Anything else for referrals, Bob, that you noticed?
No, I think that's the only thing. We covered everything under the findings regarding, there's a lot from, from health regarding why it has to be considered a bedroom, so.
Very good. All right. Last call for anything else for either findings or conditions. Anyone?
Fencing on the demo, is that part of the building permit?
I'm sorry, what was that, Scott?
Fencing, when they're doing the demo, they're usually having them fence. I didn't know if that was a prerequisite for the demo permit and not.
Fence like limit of work for Concom, that sort of thing?
No, I'm talking about chain link fence around open holes when they're doing demo.
Oh,
I didn't know if that was part of their permit.
I would assume that would be through a building permit.
Yeah, I'm good.
So I just have one question to the administrator. Noreen, when you're dealing with something that is a raise and a reconstruct in the same footprint, do we ever require any kind of a measurement once the new structure starts to go up to make sure it stayed within the footprint? I know we've dealt with them on height. Do they ever do anything?
Right, so the structure will require an as-built foundation, and that will be submitted to the building department and to us as well.
So we don't need to write anything in on that, right? It's automatically submitted to us?
I mean, we can certainly add it in.
Maybe just add that in as a double check.
Doesn't hurt to add it. All right, anything else? All right, seeing none, if I had it right, I think that was a motion to approve by Scott and it was seconded by Ken. We'll do to approve with conditions. Roll call vote. Once again, we'll do Bob.
Nay.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Scott?
Scott Zelinski, aye.
Thank you, Scott. Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Thank you, Ed. Ken?
Ken Forman, aye.
Thank you, Ken. And I think that leaves myself. TJ Hurry, aye. So the passes 4-1 with conditions. Attorney Clower, thank you.
Thank you. I know this ended up being a more difficult project than we had anticipated, but I appreciate your time. And I just want to note, I did sit in on the building commissioner, your meeting with the building commissioner, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. And I thought that was a really important and helpful discussion. And I hope that continues. And and if it does, if there's any way to open it to the public in some capacity, I think it would be incredibly helpful.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Mr. Costa.
Thank you for your service, everyone.
All right, up next, we have application 50-20, Village at Brookhill LLC, 511 Brookhill Road in West Falmouth. So this is a continuation of the comprehensive permit, and we have Attorney Glenn. Let's see, Paul, okay, he's in the audience as Paul Glenn. If he could be elevated, please. All right, Attorney Glenn, we have you. Looks like you are unmuted, so that's good. You'll just have to turn on your video. There you are.
Okay. So
Welcome.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, the rest of the board. My name's Paul Glenn. I'm a lawyer in Falmouth, and I represent Mike Solimando and his project up at 511 Brookhill Road. Mike Verselli is here from Falmouth Engineering. He's also here present, and Mike Solimando, the applicant, is also here. Okay.
Would you like to get them elevated, Attorney Glenn?
I think so. Might
Sure.
be easier if you want to ask him a question.
Sure. Let's go ahead and do that if we could get Mr. Salamando, and Mr. Barcelli. There you are. Fantastic. All right, and I should mention that the voting members on this project are myself, Ken Foreman, Bob Dugan, Ed Van Kuren, and Scott Zelinski. All right, looks like we're all here. Thank you, Attorney Glenn. Go ahead.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make one note? Maybe
Oh,
maybe the administrator could make a comment, but it's my understanding that because of the submittal that our peer review will not be here this evening. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then there is one letter that was submitted to the file.
sorry about that, Bob.
That's okay. I found it last minute, so. That I just need to read into the record.
Sure, go
And this
ahead.
was submitted, so this letter was submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals on March 15th. Dear ZBA board members, hello and thank you for reviewing our letter of concern at past and present meetings that still exists for our property at 513 Brookhill Road. As we are the only private abutter to the proposed development, we are still very concerned for items below that we wish to continue bringing to your attention and to that of the developer. As we have stated previously, before this proposed development will have an impact on the Donnellans and their use and enjoyment of their property. They would like to have that impact minimized to the greatest extent possible. Due to the new vehicle and foot traffic noises of 28 units, this will disrupt the peacefulness and simplicity in which they moved and developed this property back in 1992. The list below are the items we are still concerned with after the February 4th, 2021 ZBA meeting. Item 1, fencing. The Donnellans are adamant with the request that the applicant install an 8-inch high dog ear privacy fence, beginning at a point 15 feet back from Brookhill Road, and then following the common boundary line to the angled corner between lots 23 and lot 22. They attached a PDF. At that point, the fence could be a split rail extending west along the common boundary line to parcel 20A, the land of the town of Falmouth. The area in which we are requesting this fencing is not extremely wooded, and there is no large buffer from the development side. As Mr. Glynn mentioned at the 2/4/21 meeting, it says, please see submitted videos. Installing this fence will buffer the new noise congestion a very good deal. Number 2 is lighting. As we discussed at the 2/4/21 meeting, we would be in favor of having restrictions set for backyard lighting so that extra noise is not added to our property. Number 3, boundary line elements. We wish to have the previous points in regards to the limit of work plan addressed so there are no new submissions as of 3/14/2021 submitted. See videos submitted. A, in the interest of clarity, the applicant might designate on a plan what trees, if any, will be removed. B, is it necessary that the limit of work extends so close to the property line? C, the retaining wall at unit number 29 sits right behind the garage of 513. Whom does this benefit? What will happen to storm runoff? Does this push into the corner of lot 513 that abuts the 511 development? Does the applicant propose to remove it? And D, how will the limit of work and the property line be marked prior to clearing, excavation, and construction? We sincerely thank you again for your time and listening to our concerns. And that's signed the Donnellans at 513. And then just to Mr. Glynn, because our peer review isn't here tonight, so that we will be continuing the hearing, there is an agreement for extension that the board will need you to sign, and that continues the hearing to May 6, 2021. We just have to know that you're agreeable to that this evening, and at that point, the administrator can send you the paperwork that needs to be signed.
So should I deal with that request for extension first, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, if you'd like to agree to that, and then we can continue
Really,
on with the hearing tonight.
is April 29th possible?
I'd have to defer to Noreen. I don't have our future dates in front of us.
It's a whole month. That's killing me.
So we do currently have a meeting scheduled for April 29th.
We do not, you said, Noreen? Sorry.
Correct. We were looking at May 6th as the next available date. I guess, you know, I
May
guess
6th?
it's up to the board. Yep.
All right. And Noreen, you have the dates in front of you. Are they
When is town meeting?
pretty much full?
Town meeting's coming up in April, right?
It is.
22nd or something? I mean, that might be why we didn't schedule it.
So we do have a meeting scheduled for the 22nd, but that's a Thursday. And I think town meeting is, I stand corrected possibly, but I believe it's a Monday/Wednesday. I think actually,
I think it might be April 12th.
You might be right. I have this written down somewhere.
Bob, that extension, is that just to continue the hearing, or are we up against a deadline? I thought the COVID extensions were still in place.
Yeah, so first of all, town meeting is April 12th. This was the agreement that the administrator provided to this date, so I'll let her explain what the deadlines would be.
Sure.
so you do have some protection from the governor's orders with COVID. That being said, they are starting to have those begin to return back to normal. That being said, it's best practice to have written continuances as you are approaching what would be a typical 180-day timeline. We did also have a circumstance where there was a meeting that was scheduled that date in November was not used, and the board just continued the hearing.
Thank you, Noreen.
Noreen, what's the reason for the continuance?
So while you obviously need a next date to meet, we currently have the 8th and 22nd of April that are scheduled, both of which meetings are fully packed with hearings.
No, I said, what's the reason for the continuance tonight?
The applicant has not finished providing information that's required for the board to vote on the hearing, and you have not yet heard from the peer review engineer because the peer review engineer has not received the requested information to date.
Pretty much says it.
Could I add to that, Mr. Chairman? Is that okay if I add to the reasoning there?
Sure, go ahead, Attorney Glenn.
Oh, okay, thanks. So we were asked to get drainage calculations, storm calculations, and Mike could give you more details, but we've ordered them. We have somebody working on it. The drainage calculation should be coming in sometime next week. And the peer review person, Brian from BSC, did not want to give an interim response to the plan until he saw these drainage calculations. He just wanted to do it once. So the necessity of another hearing, there is a necessity of another hearing. We have a couple of other matters, though, we can deal with tonight. So we're not continuing it. We just will need another hearing to fully comply.
Thank you for the clarification, Attorney Glenn.
I'm not sure we yet have a full waiver list or have discussed it.
Well, we can certainly address that tonight, Ken. Absolutely. And I know that Attorney Glenn, the board is kind of tied up with our schedule. We do have those dates ahead of us that are full. I don't think we'd be able to accommodate at an application like this.
Yep.
until, and I'm sorry, Noreen, we tossed around a lot of dates. What's that date?
So May 6th would be what we're requesting.
May 6th. Okay.
I did also confirm with the peer engineer that he would be open for a meeting that date. I did not confirm April 29th with him because we did not have a meeting scheduled that date.
All right. So it sounds like May 6th. That's what it's going to have to be then.
And that's the only thing on the schedule for May 6th is this now?
I believe that's the only case we have on at this point in time.
And I would urge the rest of the board to put it off, all of it till then. We know we have everything ready.
All right.
Are you suggesting we not take anything up tonight?
Why?
Well, I look, these things are accumulative. You know, as they present the project, we learn more. Questions are raised, and we can ask those questions, and the applicant can then make an effort to address them. I think we didn't get very far the last time, so I think it'd be good to hear what else they might have to say.
And I think we should make good use of our time tonight. And then whatever needs to be addressed during the next meeting can be addressed then. All right. So Attorney Glenn, do we have an agreement to continue to May 6th?
Yes, we do.
All right. Thank you. All right.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just have a comment. So where we are going to go forward with something tonight, I would request that we don't discuss anything that has to do with the peer engineer review, because if we start discussing questions about that tonight, we're going to have to remember what we did before to discuss it with the peer engineer at the next one. So, we could touch issues with waivers or setups, but
Sure.
as far as
I think that's
engineering.
best to, thank you, Bob. So I think that's best to hold off on those technical engineering questions until the next hearing, May 6th. But for tonight, I performed a site visit, so I have questions regarding that. And Ken brought up a great point about hitting on the waiver requests. So if that's good enough for an agenda to hit on tonight, I think we can proceed. How's everyone feel about that?
Yes,
All right.
good. Let's
Attorney
go.
Glenn?
Right.
Right
Just
ahead.
just to remind you, these are cumulative. They go on for a while. We originally had a 32 home proposal and we knocked it down to 28. And one of the things that was accomplished in the new plans that were submitted created a bigger buffer on the northern side of the Donlands. That's not the side that he's interested in. Mike Salamando would be happy to talk to you in a little bit about the fence, the landscaping, and the lighting, and what he can do. He's really trying hard to accommodate Mr. Donlan and what he can do for that. We also submitted a budget. A member asked about a budget that would each lot would pay every year. The next plan that we show will show open space that will be deeded to a homeowners association. The homeowners association will maintain that, and they need funds to do that. And we've submitted a budget to that effect there. And it's divided by 28. All 28 units, the affordable and the market, will pay an equal share towards that. There will be changes in the plan. I suppose I shouldn't talk about that now either. Mike Briselli didn't want to make changes to it either till he had everything together. I think he felt the same way as the peer review person did. So I'll avoid comments about that. I know one of the changes is going to be to put the mailbox and the bus stop in the center of the development as opposed to out by Brookhill Road. And they're going to do some things to accommodate Mr. Donlan with regard to slope over at at lot 25. So those things have been submitted. Those things have been changed. And if you have any questions, happy to help you try to answer them.
All right, thank you, Attorney Glenn. So did you want to turn it to board questions now, or did you want Mr. Solomando to address us, or how would you like to proceed?
Mike, are you ready to talk about what you'd like to do with the Donlands there?
Well, yes, that's fine if the board gets to hear it. We went to, I submitted a letter because I couldn't get on before the last time I was having a hard time with the Zoom meeting. And but I did prepare and I wrote you a letter. I don't know if everybody got it, which explained a lot of the questions that I thought some of the board members had. I know, Robert, did you happen to get it?
We got that forwarded to us via email, Mr. Solomando.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, I won't be redundant. That I don't want to repeat it, but we did, and there with the retaining wall. The retaining wall is going to be removed. All right, in the back of what was once lot 29. All right, is now lot 25. All right. I also switched out the unit there to make a narrower or a less deep unit, so we didn't come up close to the to the back side of the garage. As far as and then as we go down further, we actually moved the last unit on that. I'll just get it out to get the correct number. I believe it's 22. And
is it possible for him to share the plan? Maybe that's too hard. I don't know.
Mr. Barcelli, I think you could.
I'm
right?
lucky I'm on here. But
I can share the plan and just direct you based on what Mr. Salamando describes.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, if you're comfortable with that, Mr. Barcelli, go ahead and try that.
All right, here we go.
All right. Mr. Salamando, whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. Well, as you can see, we in back of the closest to the garage, which was one of my neighbor's concerns. Okay, that retaining wall is now going to be removed. The unit that we had in place, which was the old unit 29, which now, since we eliminated 4 units, became 25. All right, and we shortened up that particular type of unit, and we gave it a bigger backyard. That way, it gives us more of an easier fetch or an easier glide, and we can remove that the slope gently, and we could take that. There's no need for that retaining wall any longer. Then if we move back over to unit number 22, that was on the old plan, that was near very close, like to the corner there of the lot. And we pushed that off and further down on that side. I also, if you look at, stockade fence is not going to look good. It's not. It really isn't. It's and I understand their concerns to some effect. Regardless of what we saw in the video, I can truly think that. I mean, you're not going to look through a garage. I mean, to look at the backyard. But in this case over here, I'm willing to sit with them and work with them. And we'll plant some evergreens in there that'll really tighten up the view. It's fairly. I disagree with the attorney, and I mean I've walked those woods, and we'll plant some evergreens in there. I'd rather have evergreens, even if it's than putting up a stockade fence. The other is we move up on the plan. If they want to bring that fence all the way up to the end of the line, I mean that's quite a couple of it's over 100 feet or 100 and something feet. There's nothing there. I mean it's just open space in there. I mean we've got this cleared as a meadow over the which I think it works out pretty good. I've done it in another project in Chilmark, as a matter of fact, and we had this open meadow. It was beautiful. I mean, it really came in. We dusted it with wild, but the way we created it, and it's stayed for many years. It's pretty nice every time I go by it when I'm out that way. But there's actually, we opened this up this whole area. A lot of the trees in this area don't have to be cut along the boundary line and inside our boundary line, and we'll make an effort to do that. I'm happy to work with the Donlins. I'm sure we can come to something. I mean, I met with the Donlin family, as I told you in my letter, about a year before this. We sat down in the kitchen and went over everything with them, with Mr. and Mrs. Donlin. And, I wish they had called me. We could, if they had some concerns, I gave them my number. I told them anything they needed done while I have equipment. I'd be happy to, just bring them over, if it's something easy, and take care of it for them. That's the way I operate, and that's what I did. Nothing was ever mentioned to me. It was, but I'm still, sometimes these things come up, and family gets involved, and I have talked to the family. And that's how I knew that, they wanted this changed. I changed that. They wanted a fence. They wanted stockade. I said, I can't do that. But if you're worried about people trespassing on your property, and that was what the initial retort was.
Michael, what about the lights? Can you talk about the lights too?
Sure. The lights, I mean, these lights, they're only going 6 feet high. They're in the front of the house. I don't think they're going to see much of them. I mean, maybe they catch a glimpse of it. It may be blinking, but I mean, I'm happy to do. I made a suggestion to the board. I could put one light at every 50-foot station. I mean, that should bring some light onto the streetway and onto the sidewalk. But I don't think that one light on each house is extravagant, or it's there. I don't think it's really going to harm them at all with the woods that they have to have. They mentioned in their second letter about something. We can make some type of restriction or on the lighting outside the back of the homes along that property line, where Mike is showing you right there. If that helps out, but I mean, people. It's number one. I think it's a state law that we have to have a light outside the doorway, outside. And most of these have little patios that come off of them. So, I mean, as long as we get it so we can restrict it so it doesn't shine into their property, I think we could make it, I think I can allay their fears. I don't know what the board thinks.
Thank you, Mr. Salamando. All right. Mr. Barcelli, Mr. Salamando, are you all set? We can.
Wait, don't do away with that yet.
The map?
Yeah. I had some.
Mr. Barcelli, if you could. Thank you.
Should be back.
It is.
It is.
I just had a few questions because
Sure.
things that actually we had brought up the last time. You said you relocated the mailbox, right?
I can speak
Yes.
to that.
I'm
You
sorry.
could just point to where.
All right. I'm gonna. We are going to relocate the mailbox. So when you get the final revised plans, if you recall, this location, we had some discussion about this,
Right.
Mr. Foreman. So subsequent to that hearing, we made a decision, and it makes a lot of sense to relocate it to a location right here.
Okay.
This
I agree.
location literally is centrally located. By that, I mean, from where I'm dragging my mouse this way, including this unit, is 14 units. And
Right.
from where I'm dragging my mouse this way is 14 units. So it's,
No, that's, in my view, that's perfect. But the other issue was the bus stop. Is that going to remain where it was, or are you going to?
no, they're both a unit. They're both relocating to this location.
Okay.
So if I could go back to this, this will become part of this lot. There'll be a
Right.
rounding,
Okay, good.
just
Good.
like this side. It'll be the same.
You've addressed one small concern I had. The other, so if you do have the bus stop, there's plenty of radius in that
Absolutely.
cul-de-sac for a bus to get around there?
Absolutely. The inside radius is 58. Yes.
Okay.
Fire equipment, buses, this is more than adequate.
And then I guess I had a question about the stockade fence. Where did the Donalds want it?
They wanted it in back of 21 all the way to back of 21 here, all the way along this line, all the
Right,
way
okay.
down here, and all the way to the street.
Here.
All the way to the street.
Yeah,
So basically that entire south property line of theirs.
yeah.
Is there any portion of that you feel would be okay to do?
Not really.
Why not?
Because I think there's adequate trees. I'm willing to plant trees there. Number one, the first two, just take the first 3 units. The first 3 units are where the existing house and driveway and garage sit right now. 28, 27, and 26. We actually are going to clear, except for where number 26 is, we don't clear any trees or anything where 28 and 27 are, where units 28 and 7. We're right on the existing driveway and on the existing house.
Yes.
So I went out there early on. I don't think any buildings were staked. TJ said he made a site visit. Are there building locations staked now?
No, we haven't even cleared it yet.
Right, well, you don't have to clear it to stake the building locations.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, if you try to venture out beyond this point, it's briars and woodlands. I mean,
It's challenging.
It's
My
challenging.
favorite habitat.
We'll get to it, but it was challenging to get out there.
and
Wait till the ticks come.
I fell a few times, and I'm glad I had my cell phone with me.
We can go in a group. Bring your machete.
Yeah, you'll
Need a couple of them.
Well, I just feel like, especially along that property line, it would be nice to see where those.
Here, we could do, this would be reasonable to stake. I could stake this property line, and I could perhaps stake a couple here so you see the return.
Right.
And then I could stake, would it be sufficient to stake the backs of these units?
Yeah, if it's, I mean, I always like to see the corners, but.
I mean, I can stake the corners if that's what you'd prefer. Like, 4 corners.
I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I like to see the 4 corners.
The corners might be a good idea.
Do you know what the distance from 23 is to the Donalds lot line?
I can tell you that right now. $17 feet, and the minimum setback under by right zoning is 10.
Okay, and unit 28 is 10.7 feet from the lot line?
Yes.
Yes.
And so if you have a back patio or something, is that going to leave you much space to plant before the shared lot line?
Well, on unit 28, for instance, there's a small deck here. That's all that's contemplated on the back of this unit, which is not on the tight spot. It's on this side. So you can see
Right.
it's about the same distance off the property line as this corner.
Right, but I guess the question I have is what type of plantings could be done before the lot line to provide screening?
I guess I'd defer to Michael on that, other than to
Well,
say,
if you-
put
if
a
you
row
go-
of arborvitae or some evergreen, an upright evergreen. It's essentially a living fence instead of a stockade fence.
The trees there are giant white pines when we come in. If you look at you can see the gravel driveway when you come in. We're sitting on the gravel driveway with the back of that house. It's very funny how I think that this lot was carved out of this piece of property at one time, because these, as you can see, these gravel driveways that existed and were used by the previous owners, all right, they transgressed the lot lines.
So that encroached, yeah.
They encroached right over them.
Right.
It's kind of funny. So that's why I think it was, I don't know why.
So that would be another thing, Mike, I hope you delineate at least the lot line for us as well.
This lot line in the four major corners of these units.
Yeah, that'd be, I don't know, what does the rest of the board think? But
I think that's a good plan, Ken.
The more stakes, the better. I did have a question while we're on this, talking about trees, and the administrator brought it up, and it's a waiver question. So I guess this would go to Attorney Glynn. In your waivers list, you're asking for waiver from sections 240-114, 115, and 117. Those all relate to landscaping. Could you explain why you're asking for those waivers?
Well, we didn't do a landscaping plan that can, why we'll ask for that? Not for the particular lots. I think we asked for every lot, didn't we, for landscaping waivers?
But I on other ones I've been involved with before, I haven't seen that waiver. That's why I was wondering why specifically those landscape waivers.
Well, because we didn't do the landscape plans according to what's required in the bylaws.
So my other question is you're asking for a waiver from section 240-72C8. I think it's a typo because there is no C8. Is that supposed to be 72.3?
What number is that?
Number 12.
72C8.
So there is a 72.3 C8, and that relates to recharge area and water quality. Is that the one that's requested?
I think so. That's the one that he meant, yes.
So could you just give a little more explanation on why you're seeking that waiver?
Well, we're actually going to be submitting now the chart, the drainage calculations, and perhaps then we don't need it. I defer to Mike on that. Do you have will the drainage calculations help us with that one?
I'm unaware of the section you're referring to. I don't know the particulars of that bylaw. I'd have to review the bylaw.
So if this is the right one that's stated, this is what section 8 says. It says any use that will render impervious more than 15% or 2,500 square feet of any lot, whichever is greater, a system for groundwater recharge must be provided which does not degrade groundwater quality. For non-residential uses, recharge shall be by stormwater infiltration basins or similar system covered with natural vegetation. Dry wells shall be used only where other methods are unfeasible. Any and all recharge areas shall be permanently maintained according to the best management practices by the owner.
So we just can't comply with that with the lots this size because the lot coverage is so high, and we just can't comply with those type of studies, water studies. So I'm asking for a waiver for it.
So I guess my only concern with that one is where we're in a water resource quality district, and this mentions degrading groundwater. Is there anything that shows that this won't degrade groundwater?
Well, I think if I can answer that, I think you'll find when the stormwater management consultant finishes his work, which he is feverishly working on, and we revise the plans. It comes with a report that the standards for stormwater management are in accordance with Mass DEP best management practices for the protection of groundwater and surface water and wetlands. And it's like the Cadillac of drainage. In fact, this is the first project I've ever even been involved with in the town of Falmouth where we've had such a comprehensive drainage analysis to the point we needed to hire a consultant. Your peer review engineer brought up the point, which is why we're working on it. And what we're going to provide to you would far outweigh anything within the zoning bylaw for groundwater protection.
What are your plans for landscaping the individual lots? Are you doing a specific landscaping? Are you trying to do allowances? What are the plans there right now in landscaping?
Yeah,
Weren't they submitted to you?
we submitted plans. They don't comply with the bylaws, but he's going to plant a shade tree on every house, and he's going to spend up to $5,000 on each house in other landscaping. They all won't be the same. Each homeowner may choose different type of bushes, but it all will be landscaped.
So is it an allowance per homeowner so they can choose the landscaping, or is there an actual setup? I guess my only issue would be there is what if, one owner may take $5,000 in landscaping and, put a lot of small things that'll grow well. Somebody else may pick some kind of a specimen tree that takes up most of the budget. So is there a minimum landscaping on each lot?
We gave you a small template. I did the first four units. I thought I sent it to you, Robert.
I guess my question is with the $5,000 allotment, is that something that you do, or is that something that a homeowner chooses so that, if you're doing it, there's more of a conformity. You can see where a homeowner one person may use the $5,000 for very few items. One might use it for many. So that's what I was wondering. What's the consistency there so that you don't have a property where somebody takes most of the budget and really doesn't get a full landscaping because they're putting it into higher end materials versus somebody else.
I think a condition would be well accepted if you put a condition on that. Mike wants to keep some control over that for sure. But, as far as whether you have rhododendrons or azaleas, I think that's what he has in mind there. But yeah, you could spend $5,000 on one tree, I guess, right? So Mike will be sure that there is some type of minimum, and a condition to that effect would make a lot of sense.
And just so I'm clear, Attorney Glenn, is there any way to opt out of that $5,000 budget, or in the event that the property owner doesn't have any preference, does Mr. Salamando come in and he provides that $5,000 worth?
He will allow that to happen, and a condition to make sure he doesn't allow that to happen makes a lot of sense from your point of view. I get that.
Okay.
Each one of these houses, he has a lot of pride in his work, and he's going to make sure that it's all landscaped and looking good. And I understand Bob's question. Yeah, I mean, one flower could cost $5,000, I guess.
Right, and it's an interesting proposal too. I don't think we see that too often with a budget per home. So thank you for clarifying that.
We'll have one shade tree, so not next year, not in a decade, but eventually this will have 28, more than 28 shade trees. Each house will have a shade tree. So he's not doing this on the cheap. He's going to make sure that this is going to look good eventually.
If the board cares to, if they look up the village at South River, I think there's some shots there, and this was just this was nowhere near $5,000 because they were townhouse units, and I think the board would be very pleased if they go online and look at it. How it looks today, I'm very proud of it, but a lot of it is, I'm here to sell units, all right, or homes, and each one is going to be the last one sells the next one, and that's I really feel that, and you got to make it look good. It will look good. I can assure you, because it's a long, thin road, and there can't be any hiccups.
Mr. Salamando, I think board members can't look up things individually on our own. Could you
sorry.
identify what municipality that project
was
is in? And maybe Situate, thank you.
Situate, in the village of Hummerock.
Oh, Hummerock, yep. Maybe you could provide us, a sample from that project for us to give us an illustration?
I can't do it right now, but I would.
No, understood. But at a future date, maybe you could pass it along to Noreen
Sure.
and Ashley, and they can distribute it out to us.
Sure.
Just the reason being, we can't individually investigate things ourselves. It just needs to be submitted by you, the applicant. And
Forgive me, I didn't know that.
No worries. Bob, did you have anything else? Not hearing Bob. Mr. Briselli, now that you have that site plan up, I did perform my own site visit in early February. It was before it snowed. And I did wear a good heavy pair of jeans, but that did not prevent my legs from looking like my fiance's cat attacked me. If I give you some wooden stakes that were numbered, could you identify on the plan where I was? There were wooden stakes and they were numbered throughout. They were probably property lines.
Let's try one.
All right. 2+00. It was a wooden stake.
All right. So those are, if you look
Those are stations.
See that? 2+00?
Yep.
Anything with a 2+00 was a representation of the center line of the driveway. And when we filed the application, we set station stakes along the center line of this roadway. You'll see designations along here with numbers like you just recited. So 2+00 is representing this point.
All right, so there I was there, and 3+00, I guess, was a little further down the road.
Yeah, those are 100-foot stations. So there's 100 feet between 2+00 and 3+00.
Got it. And then I found my way to 5+00.
Which was right here.
Yeah, now I'm getting deeper in there.
And did you go further than that?
I found a scrub pine with a pink tape that had road 500 foot west on it.
Oh, that was probably my surveyors, just for their own, because even surveyors get lost in the woods.
Oh, yeah. So I was probably beyond that 5 figure there somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere back there near there, I think I was making my way toward Lot A, where it's described as 6.7 acres. I think I was around there. There was a metal pole with orange tape with what appeared to be a concrete bound.
Well, it would have probably represented one of these, something along this boundary.
All right, I was somewhere around there.
I'm guessing, yes.
Okay. And then it was pretty much impossible for me to get out the way I came in, and I came out near the football field.
Yeah.
Can you show that?
Over here.
I know it'll be off, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So
actually, I have the aerial photo. I have the aerial photo. This might be helpful.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Just proving to you, I did walk the site.
Okay. This has to reload. I apologize for that.
No worries.
Might take too long for you. Oh, here it is. Oh, I just changed it.
Right.
There it is. So the metal pole or whatever you would do, this is that property line.
Yep, that was along there.
Station 2 and 3, 4, 5 were here. And here's the football field over here.
There it is. Yeah, that's where I called it quits.
You meandered off track a little bit.
It was the path of least resistance at that
Now,
point.
I
Mr. Vasselli.
understand. I do the same thing.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
All right. Let's continue with board questions. And since I'm a little, let's see who else. Ken, did you have anything else, Ken?
Well, I'm looking at the peer reviewers' comments and I'm looking at the list of 13 waivers. And I guess I just want to be sure that the next time they come before us, we can discuss each of the waivers that are required. Okay. And maybe like some details, like many of the lots do conform with respect to side yard or rear yard setbacks. So I'd kind of like to know which ones don't. And maybe there's a way things can be adjusted slightly to get more conformance. I don't know. So, I think we're looking, at least me, but the board in general, I think for these projects is looking for a little more detailed explanation of what's happening.
Well, we'll be very prepared for that. I'll get you more detail with it. And I don't know if we can make the lots any bigger though, Ken,
Well, I'm not necessarily saying, but sometimes you can move the structure a foot or two and suddenly you don't have a nonconformity, so it's, unless there's a good reason why you don't want to do it, by reducing the number of units, you have created a little more flexibility, which is greatly appreciated, by the way. So we often do not see that when people come in with 40Bs. So thank you.
So we will. I'll go over them and I'll have an explanation for each one at the next hearing then. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Scott, any questions?
I have one for Mr. Salamando. With the amount of waivers being asked for and the density of this project, you're going to have to help me with your reasoning on why you're so adamant about not putting a fence up on that property line. Is it a matter of a monetary or a matter of principle for you that you're adamant about not doing that?
Monetary is always an issue, but yeah, I think it's.
That was for Mr. Salamando, actually.
Oh, okay, all right, yep, very good.
Well, first of all, I just don't think it's going to look that good. All right. We have, we have all these woods there, and I'm willing to put, I think the trees look better than a fence. I mean, an 8-foot stockade fence, especially I sat with them at first. It was explained to me it was because they don't want people to trespass on their property. I don't think a lot of these people are going to go trespassing, but in the effect, I offered I thought a split rail fence and we could still see the vegetation that's there. And now, but they insisted they want a stockade fence. So it's not just it's because they don't want to see the houses.
Well, don't you think that the abutters to a project this size, their concerns should be at least considered?
I did consider it. I did. I moved everything off the back lot line because that's where their house is. I mean, this is a garage over here. I mean, you're going to see through the garage from the house.
I guess my final question, sir, is what if it's conditioned like that?
Excuse me? I'm sorry. I didn't understand.
I'm asking, what if it was conditioned as part of the approval to have a stockade fence?
Could I answer that, Mr. Zelinski? I think we'll, given your concern, we certainly have taken the Donlands concern very seriously, probably more than any other issue other than engineering issues right from the beginning. So we take it seriously. Give us a shot to see if we can come in with a specific proposal that will keep them happy. Something less than a 8-foot stockade fence might keep them happy. Give Mr. Salamando a little time to come back with a proposal that might work for everybody.
It's fair enough. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Scott. Let's see, Mary, anything?
I have no questions at this time.
Thank you, Mary. Ed, do you have anything?
No, I think we're going in the right direction.
Thank you, Ed.
Mr. Chairman,
Any other?
I think you
Sorry, go
said we're
go ahead,
going in the
Mike.
right direction and that Mike Borselli has done a great design.
Yeah, it was, he came in a little choppy at the end. Is that what he said?
Have we asked which units, I think we did cover this, but I don't remember, are affordable and which are not?
I can point those out to you, and they will be on the plan when you get the final plans, but I will direct you to them now. Unit 1, Unit 8, Unit 10, Unit 14, Unit 18, Unit 22, and Unit 25.
Okay.
And they will be designated, there'll be a note on the plan, I should say, that designates them.
All right. Any other follow-up questions from the board?
Well, I guess I'm just, we often do see some kind of a conceptual landscape plan. And I don't know if they've submitted anything.
Yeah, Ken, we did.
You know, it was
I
just.
believe you.
Yeah.
You submitted a lot of stuff, so let me,
Okay.
I think
That was
we
in the black binder, right?
I think we submitted it along with the bus stop sketch.
can you tell me what,
And that was in the black binder, section 3.
oh, section 3, that's why, because I'm looking and,
Yep, concept plan, landscaping.
oh, there it is.
Yep.
Right, so this does not show any landscape buffer plantings. That's,
Where?
well, along those boundaries where we've talked about. It shows the street trees.
That was submitted before any of this came up.
Okay, so, I mean, so just a suggestion that maybe it be revised to show some of that.
We'll work on that. We'll work on that. That's what I had in mind when I was talking to Mr. Zelinski about maybe we can come up with something that keeps the Donlands happy and the
I mean, there
applicant.
might be some combination of fencing and landscaping, you
Right.
know.
Right.
If we can put that boundary line in, Mike, and then we can,
Yes,
especially from right there.
Yeah,
I really don't think there needs to be anything on the first 2 houses. I mean, but if we can go from the back of this one here, from number 26 and go down there to 23. And if we get that line in, we can see, what trees are there. And then, step in and see where a cut line is and then go from there. And we show the board what's there. I think
That's a good plan, Mr. Solomondo.
that makes sense.
All right.
Something else that we've talked about is flagging significant trees to be preserved if there are. Now, I haven't been out there with looked around enough I did walk through it briefly, but to see if there are some, but that might be a nice thing to do.
Ken, did anybody, Ken, did you read the letter that I sent? I guess it was an email. Came to you in email form.
Didn't come directly to us, did it?
You're referring to the one you sent in early February, Mr. Solomondo?
Yes, February 9th. Dear board members.
Yeah, I have a copy of that. That was February. It was in
Nice.
my mailbox, February 12th.
That was in the record?
Yeah, received by the office February 12th,
Okay.
and
It was never read.
Ashley sent it out to us on the same date.
I mean, it talks about clear cutting. It talks about, the problems, and they're real. Because I couldn't address the board because I couldn't get on, and those were some of the concerns that you had, and at the last meeting, and I just wanted to get my whatever it is for 2 cents and give you my opinion on some of these things and how we do the flagging, how we do the cutting, or in general on a project like this. It'd be nice to say you could, but you'd love to save the trees. But if you read it, then you'll get a clearer understanding of what my concerns are. We're trying to do that.
Well, certainly I'll try to dredge that up. I guess what I'm thinking though is.
I'll send it to you.
You do show, for example, in that landscape plan you just sent, you show these tree buffers, and that's another thing that sometimes they show up on the drawing, and then when you go out there, it's been clear cut beyond those buffer lines. So I guess that's where I'm just saying, what can we do to make sure that those buffers are meaningful if you really anticipate leaving them?
Well, we do. Where we can, we're going to try to. That's what we're going to do.
Right.
So I think, Mr. Foreman, you're looking in the areas that aren't going to be developed. There may be an opportunity to save some trees there that are away from homes that won't be a hazard in the future. And I think we could look at that.
Yeah, I'm not talking about leaving a giant, pine tree that's leaning at a 45-degree angle over someone's front yard.
Right.
No, I
There may be a few
agree.
spots. There may be.
All right. Mr. Briselli, if you don't mind, stop sharing your screen. I just want to see if there's any members of the public that have any concerns today. So if anyone out there does have any question, comment, or concern regarding this project, go ahead and click the raised hand icon using the Zoom app, and we will elevate you and hear your comments shortly. All right, not seeing anyone out there. If anyone does chime in, we'll be sure to elevate them. But back to the board. Any follow-up questions?
I have one more for from Attorney Glenn.
Go ahead, Scott.
Asked at the last question. A lot of these issues and a lot of these waivers and boundary issues and tree cutting. Are you in agreement that some of that could be cleared up with less density in these projects? The reason we're talking about all this is because we've maxed out the room right down to we can only put one tree in one yard because we've maxed out this area.
Well, we already did that. We improved it somewhat by going from 32 to 28. There are some open space areas now within the development. We're not really talking about losing another 4 units. It just becomes uneconomical at that point. We'll try to address all those other concerns, but I don't think we've never talked about cutting back more units. beyond the 28.
I was simply asking a question is as to when you run out of room, it's as simple as that. You're out of room because there's too many.
Oh, yeah.
It's overdeveloped for the amount of property that you have.
Well, that's a
out of
logical,
room, you're out of
not
room.
overdeveloped, but it's just, it is developed, and that's a logical conclusion. If you have small lots, they cost less, and you don't have as much room for open space.
Is there any consideration given to approaching the abutters about purchasing some kind of easement for buffer or a property swap or something? In order to
I don't know if they want to. That certainly would be something you could talk about. I understand that.
I can't. It's just a hypothetical question to you. I couldn't talk about that.
I tried to, excuse me, I can answer this, Paul. I tried to buy some of the property from the church next door. And then there was the YMCA that was, I tried to work with them on something, and I never got a reply from the Y. But I did try to speak to the church, and they were already in negotiation with the Y. So it was, I was trying to go that way. As far as with my abutters, the Donaldens, no, I did not. I think they like it. When I sat down with them, they didn't have much of a problem. When I sat down with them, if you read my letter, I did over a year ago, before I submitted this package to you folks. And I wanted it and I explained it to them. I gave them my number. If you had any questions, call me. If you had some problems, let me know. It's not like I just
have some.
Now they have them, but I had them after. This is after we've, Mike's gone and drawn the plan, and done all the, done all the infrastructure. Now there's a task that we're, trying to move things around, and I'm willing to do it. I did it. They had some concerns about one home. We changed the home. We pushed it farther away. We eliminated the retaining wall. It's not like I just, turned my back on them. They wanted a fence. I gave them a split rail.
I'm not saying that you are, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, but we also have a responsibility to the abutting properties as well.
It's true. Yeah, I understand. I know the board's, I know where the board sits, and I know what I'm trying. But
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Mr. Salamando. Any other follow-up questions from the board?
Well, the only other point I'd make is, and I know that, from point of view of 40B, these are all in some sense preliminary, and then you build, and then, blah. But, the more we can get things pinned down, the better.
Right. Which is a great segue to go over what we're expecting for the next meeting.
So, Mr. Chairman, we appreciate all the comments from the board tonight. Thank you for having the hearing.
Thank you, Attorney Glenn. So I just want to make sure what our expectations are for the next meeting on May 6th. I know we already talked about our peer engineer reviewing the drainage calculations, and we're anticipating some further revised plans from Mr. Barcelli regarding that.
Yes.
The landscaping, I'll get to that. The bus stop and the postage, the postal setup there.
Yes.
All right. Review of the requested waivers. Made a few points tonight about, I think there might have been an incorrect reference to one, and just reviewing them in general.
And how the proposed landscape relates to the landscape waivers.
Thank you for the clarification, Bob.
Yeah, and the peer reviewer mentioned that there were a number of waivers that should have been applied for that were not. So those need to be explicitly mentioned and discussed.
Thank you, Ken. And Mr. Salamando mentioned his Situate project or Hummerock, the landscaping plan to get or at least providing some sort of review of the landscaping for that property, just so we get a sense of what's proposed for this one. Staking the property line along the Donnelly property line. And did we agree on staking the rear corners of those homes, the proposed homes up against that property line? Was that
I
it?
think we said we'd like all four corners staked.
All four, okay. All four it is.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep,
what I would like to do to make it easier when I do the staking is I will submit through Noreen, a PDF of that area with specific numbers representing stakes. And if you were to go to the site and have that PDF as even if it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and you know, stake 1, you'll know where you are referencing yourself to the plan and the stakes on the ground.
sure, that'd be fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Barcelli.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else in terms of expectations for the next meeting? Did I miss anything? Does anything need to be added?
So I just have a question to the administrator, and I don't know if it's in the file. So when the referrals went out, did we send a referral to the Affordable Housing Group? Because they weighed in on the last project we had. They had some good comments.
Yes, we do always send a referral. And if we do not have anything in the file back, I will double check with them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. All right, would anyone like to make a motion for the continuance then?
So then I make a motion to continue this to May 6th.
Second.
All right, motion to continue to May 6th was made by Bob and seconded by Ken. Roll call vote. Where are we? Scott?
Scott Zelinski, aye.
Thank you, Scott. Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Ken?
Ken Forman, aye.
Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
And TJ Hurry, aye. So, Attorney Glenn, Mr. Barcelli, and Mr. Salamando, thank you for your time tonight. And we will see you back here May 6th.
Thank you all.
We'll
Have
see
a
you.
good evening.
Okay, so that does it for our continuations. There are no new public hearings. On to our open meeting items. Up first, we have voting the minutes for February 25th and March 4th.
And we're tabling the 4th.
Tabling the 4th, I figured. All right, thank you, Noreen. February 25th, does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes. February
Thank you, Ed.
25th, 2021.
Thank you, Ed. Is there a second?
I read them today.
Second to motion? Anyone?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Scott. All right, roll call vote. Scott?
Aye.
Ed? Oh, Ed looks muted.
I think he
frozen.
froze.
He's back. Yeah, he's back, but he froze. All right, so we'll go with Ken.
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And TJ Hurry, aye. And I think Ed is still frozen. Holding on, Ed, I suppose.
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
There he is. Thank you, Ed. All right, so it passes unanimously. The minutes from February 25th. And Ed, we can see you now. Welcome. I know you've been with us the whole time, but we can see you. All right, and tabling the minutes for March 4th. All right, up next, discuss the draft decision with vote anticipated for application 8-21 Cellco Partnership DBA Verizon Wireless, 132 East Falmouth Highway, AKA 13 Old Barnstable Road in East Falmouth. Voting members on this are myself, Ken Forman, Bob Dugan, Ed Van Kuren, and Scott Zelinski. So at our last hearing, we directed Noreen to draft a positive motion with some suggested findings and conditions. And it's gone back and forth with a couple of revisions a few times.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure everybody did get to read the copy of the draft. If they did and there's no changes, I do need to read it in. So maybe, so if there's no changes, I'll just go ahead and read it,
Sure.
and then we can do the vote at the end.
And this is incorporating Noreen's most recent email,
Correct.
3:43 this afternoon. All right. How does everyone feel about that plan?
That's with town council's input? Is that the one we're talking about?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Noreen's email.
Yeah.
All right. So if we're good with that, Bob, if you want to read it in.
Okay, so special permit number 008-21, owner Weathermark Investments, Inc., Buckley and Scott Company, Inc., P.O. Box 77, Canton, Mass., applicant Celco Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless, which is the applicant, care of Gehring and Associates LLC, P.O. Box 98, Westminster, Connecticut, and also listed as the applicant. Subject property, 132 East Falmouth Highway, also known as 13 Old Barnstable Road, East Falmouth, Massachusetts. Assessor's map, map 33, section 11, parcel 009, lot 000A. Deed certificate, book 4668, page 317. Summary for the special permit granted with conditions. Procedural history, 1. On January 27, 2021, an application was filed with the Zoning Board of Appeals requesting a special permit to conduct a replacement of a 100-foot tall cell tower at 132 East Falmouth Highway, also known as 13 Old Barnstable Road, East Falmouth, Massachusetts. Notice was given as required by Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 9, including notice mailed to all persons deemed to be affected thereby as they appeared on the tax list.
I think we can probably just do the fine conditions. I don't think you've got any requirement to read the entire decision into the record, if that's of help.
That would be of help.
It will
So then we'll
save
just
you.
go right, yeah, we'll go right to the findings. So here are the findings. Number 1, the applicant has applied under bylaw 240-3C, 240-23E, 240-216, and any other applicable sections of the Town of Falmouth zoning bylaws, Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, and the Telecommunications Act of 1996, 47 USC 332 C7B, to construct a replacement wireless tower with accessory radio equipment at the base and remove the old tower at 132 East Falmouth Highway, also known as 13 Old Barnstable Road, East Falmouth, Massachusetts. 2, the premises comprises of 23,800 square feet of area sited in the Business 2 and Single Residence C zoning districts. The existing and proposed towers are sited within the Single Residence C district at the northeast area of the lot. 3, the premises is also utilized by a fuel company since 1946 with permitted underground fuel tanks and associated vehicles. 4, Verizon Wireless has identified coverage gaps and capacity issues in its network in the vicinity of the premises, which would be alleviated by the installation of antennas at the premises as demonstrated in the radio frequency reports. 5, the existing tower, improved by antennas owned and operated by Sprint/T-Mobile, was deemed structurally deficient regarding the capacity to accommodate the proposed collation of additional antennas according to the revised building code. 6, the representative for the applicant stated that the existing tower must remain in place until the new tower is constructed so that the existing wireless cellular service continues uninterrupted. 7, the replacement lattice tower will be sited in the same area as the existing tower on a commercially used property within an appropriate fenced compound. 8, upon completion of the new tower, the existing antennas shall be transferred to the new tower. The old tower will then be demolished. 9, the original tower on the premises constructed in the 1970s and was 140 feet in height. There was no record of a special permit at that time. 10, in 2004, special permit 152-04 was granted to reduce the height of the tower to 100 feet. 11, the Zoning Board of Appeals granted special permit 99-15, which was filed with the town clerk on February 15, 2016 for the construction of a replacement 100-foot tall lattice tower at the premises. The special permit was not extended or perfected and lapsed. 12, the Zoning Board of Appeals granted variance 98-15, which was filed with the town clerk on February 16, 2016 for the construction of a replacement 100-foot tall lattice tower at the premises. The variance was not extended or perfected and lapsed. 13, the siting of the replacement tower has been improved from 6.9 to 10 feet from the northerly lot line and 20 feet from the easterly lot line, complying with the 10-foot minimum side and rear lot line setbacks. The tower will be sited 97 feet from the Old Barnstable Road at the west and 158 feet from East Falmouth Highway at the south, complying with the minimum 25-foot setback from streets. 14, the existing stockade fence for the wireless compound is in disrepair and will require replacement. Post-construction. The board has requested an 8-foot tall replacement fence. 15, the average antenna mount height of Verizon's antennas on other area towers is reported as 137 feet. The two closest towers are reported to be 147 and 120 feet in height. 16, the proposal is necessary for Verizon to provide wireless connectivity following increases in usage and coverage reliability. 17, the tower shall comply with federal law and produce a radio frequency at approximately 3% of the allowed limit. 18, the backup power shall be provided by battery. A generator is therefore no longer required for the installation, which significantly reduces noise generation. 19, new cabinets shall be placed within the fence compound. 20, compliant Federal Communications Commission signage shall be placed at the premises as required. 21, a real estate appraisal reviewing quantitative and qualitative data was provided demonstrating that the replacement tower would not be substantially more detrimental than the existing tower. 22, a certified health physicist has stated that it is his expert opinion that the facility would comply with all regulatory guidelines for RF exposure. 23, the replacement tower shall be 100 feet in height with a lightning rod at 105 feet, 1 foot lower than the existing rod at 106 feet. 24, the 100-foot height tower will not impact the search and rescue corridor overlay district. 25, the tower shall be remotely monitored 24 hours a day. 26, the tower is not required to be illuminated and shall remain unlit. 27, the installation will remain unmanned, typically requiring only monthly maintenance visits. 28, the landowner shall retain ownership of the tower. 29, the board made the finding that the proposed replacement tower complies with the provisions of bylaw 240-216. A, the site is adequate and suitable where it has been improved with a tower for over 40 years. B, the site is unmanned and will not affect traffic. C, the impact on the visual character of the neighborhood remains unchanged. D, the tower utilizes neither water nor septic. Telephone and electric utilities exist on the premises. E, site plan review and affordable housing provisions are not applicable. Should I then just go to the conditions, Noreen, and then we vote? So conditions, number 1, the construction shall be substantially as shown on the plan submitted and reviewed by the board listed below, though subject to additional conditions separately delineated. Verizon Falmouth, 3 Mass, 132 East Falmouth Highway, also known as 13 Old Barnstable Road, Falmouth, Mass. 02536, including title sheet T1 dated October 29, 2019, with a final revision date of February 19, 2021. A butters plan and existing conditions, sheet C1 dated February 17, 2021. 300 feet radius map, sheet C1A dated October 29, 2019, with a final revision date of January 20th, 2021. Plot plan, sheet C2 dated October 29, 2019, with a final revision date of February 19, 2021. 300 feet radius map, sheet C3 dated October 29, 2019, with a final revision date of February 19, 2021. Site plan, sheet C4 dated October 29, 2019, with a final revision date of February 19, 2021. Compound plan, sheet A1 dated October 29, 2019, with a final revision date of February 19, 2021. Elevation and antenna plan, sheet A2 dated October 29, 2019, with a final revision date of February 19, 2021. Prepared for Verizon, 118 Flanders Road, Westboro, Mass., and drawn by HDG Hudson Design Group, LLC, 45 Beechwood Drive, North Andover, Mass., and Northeast Survey Consultants, 116 Pleasant Street, Suite 302, P.O. Box 109, East Hampton, Mass. Plans are stamped and signed by Daniel P. Ham, P.E., and Daniel F. Stotts, PLS. 2, there should be no access to the premises by construction workers prior to the approved construction hours of 7 a.m. or after 7 p.m., Monday through Saturday. No Sunday or holiday hours are allowed, absent an emergency. All construction vehicles shall remain strictly on the subject property and not obstruct sidewalks or park in abutting streets. Construction Vehicles are prohibited from idling on any other premises outside of construction hours. During construction, efforts shall be undertaken to minimize impacts on abutters, including securing materials, stabilizing soil if applicable to guard against erosion from a rain event, and ensuring that the public roadways are kept clean. The applicant shall consult with town engineering to determine the applicability of a preferred construction route to protect town roads, installation of a wash station and dust management during construction, and shall comply with general engineering requirements. 3, applicant shall provide to the police, building department, and zoning board of appeals the name, phone number, and email address of a project contact individual for the duration of the construction process to ensure that any questions or concerns, including those of abutters and residents, are timely managed. 4, the applicant shall meet with the Falmouth Police Department to determine when or if a police detail will be required. All police details required by the Falmouth Police Department or per the applicant's own choice shall be paid for by the applicant. 5, prior to starting work under the special permit, the applicant and general contractor shall hold a pre-construction meeting with the building commissioner, town engineer, Department of Public Works representative, and any other applicable representative to review construction plans and include any applicable zoning board of appeals conditions to ensure compliance with this decision. 6, the replacement tower shall be 100 feet in height with a lightning rod extending to 105 feet. Antennas from the existing tower, currently Sprint T-Mobile, shall be placed at 100 feet. The 12 Verizon antennas shall be placed at 86 feet. 7, the replacement tower shall be sited 10 feet from the northerly lot line and 20 feet from the easterly lot line, 97 feet from Old Barnstable Road at the west, and 158 from the East Falmouth Highway at the south. 8, the Verizon equipment shall be placed on a 9-foot by 11-foot concrete pad with the fence compound, within the fence compound. 9, the compound fence shall be 8 feet in height. 10, signage shall be properly posted in compliance with the FCC and any other applicable requirements. 11, the tower shall not be illuminated. 12, the tower shall be monitored 24 hours a day, but shall remain unmanned, the exception of typical monthly inspections or an emergency. 13, auxiliary power shall be provided by battery. There shall be no permanent generator placed within the wireless compound. 14, any new stormwater runoff shall be directed to the recharge within the premises. 15, any change to connections or alterations to public utilities shall require advance permission from the appropriate town department or Mass DOT. 16, the existing lattice tower shall be removed within 90 days of the completion of the new tower. 17, the applicant shall post a bond in the amount of $43,400 at the time of application for a building permit for the construction of the new 100-foot tower at the premises to ensure that the old lattice cell tower is removed in a timely fashion following completion of the new tower. Upon completion of the removal of the old tower, the bond shall be returned. 18, failure to remove the old tower within 90 days of completion of the new tower shall constitute a zoning violation and shall be subject to enforcement by the building commissioner. 19, a certified as-built plan shall be provided to the building department, copied to the zoning board of appeals to demonstrate conformance to the approved plans prior to the final sign-off by the building department. The as-built plan should be an overlay on the site plan. Any deviations from the approved plan shall be clearly shown in a red line over the base plan, which should be faded back for clarity. The as-built shall be certified by both a licensed surveyor and registered engineer that work was performed in conformance with the approved plans and all permits. 20, any changes from the plan submitted and approved by the zoning board of appeals should be submitted to the zoning administrator for approval prior to the implementation of said change. The zoning administrator may make a determination as to whether the changes are essentially minor in nature and substantially as shown on the approved plans referencing condition 1 above and can be approved administratively, or whether the applicant must submit the changes to the Board of Appeals. Changes made prior to the approval may be subject to a full hearing and are at risk that the Zoning Board of Appeals may deny the request, subject any unapproved condition be ordered undone. 21, the permit shall lapse 3 years from the date on which the decision is filed in the town clerk's office. If a substantial use of the special permit has not sooner commenced except for good cause shown, as determined by the Zoning Board of Appeals. 22, under section 17 of chapter 53 of the Acts of 2020, the requirement to record permit decisions with the registry is suspended for so long as the registry is closed or subject to rules and procedures restricting public in-person access. However, such recording will still be required upon the full reopening of the registry with a copy provided to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Barnstable County Registry of Deeds continues to accept filings by postal mail during this period, and permit holders are requested to file the recording through this method to the extent possible. 23, This permit shall not take effect until a copy of the decision bearing the certification of the town clerk that 20 days has elapsed after the decision had been filed in the office of the town clerk with no appeal being filed, or that an appeal has been filed within such time is recorded in the Barnstable Registry of Deeds. Any party exercising rights under duly appealed special permit does so at risk that court may reverse the permit, and that any construction performed under the permit may be ordered undone.
Can I ask a question about condition 18? I'm just wondering how, Noreen, how we came up with 90 days. Seems like a long time, 3 months, 2 towers could be sitting there.
Right, so the applicant had advised that they anticipated that the original tower would be removed within 60 days. The additional 30 days is essentially a buffer so that they don't have to come back in the event that the timing overlaps with whatever time of year there may be a weather issue or whatever, but they do anticipate, that it would be done within 60 days. Further, they've specified that the location of the old tower is where they actually plan to put equipment for the new tower. So the intent is obviously to get rid of the old tower as quickly as they can.
Right. I just am wondering if they initially said 60 days, if we maybe shouldn't just amend it to be 60 days.
That's fine. And then if, they run into an issue, they can ask for an
Right, right. But this puts the burden on them, not.
Yeah, I think they're certainly eager to get their antennas up. So I would not anticipate a delay because it would not benefit themselves.
Okay. Well, if that requires any other action beyond just suggesting it, I'm happy to do it. But
Yep. So I'm glad to make the change if that's what the board would prefer.
Sounds like a good change.
Sounds like a good one. Thank you, Ken.
Okay, so you'd like to go back to 60?
All right. Other than that, any other comments or revisions to be made on the decision? Findings or conditions, either one. All right. Would anyone like to make a motion then?
So I make a motion to grant the special permit as with the revisions that Ken just made.
I'll second Mr. Dugan's motion.
All right. Motion to vote upon the decision as amended, made by Bob and seconded by Scott. Roll call vote. Ken?
Ken Forman, aye.
Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Ed? Is Ed frozen? How about Scott?
Scott Zelinski, aye.
And TJ Hurry, aye. Ed, you with us? There you are.
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Thank you, Ed.
It's working now?
It is. All right, so it passes unanimously. All right, up next, amending the board's rules and procedures with a vote anticipated. I thought it was our intention to vote upon Mary's changes tonight, and I thought that we were waiting on further input from town council regarding the rest of it. Did I have that correct, or was I?
No,
was I wrong?
So you're correct. And, my request to have the vote postponed was to save you the trouble of filing amended rules and procedures twice.
Oh, I see.
Not to delay Mary's request, but where I forwarded the existing rules and procedures to town council, there were some issues within the rules and procedures as to whether some of the material in there was properly worded. And so they did request an opportunity to weigh in on that. So I thought rather than amend your rules twice in close proximity time-wise, it perhaps made a little bit better sense to just postpone that briefly.
Thank you, Noreen.
So I guess my only question would be, how long is town, are they going to have an answer for us by the next meeting? Because it's been about 3 weeks since we proposed Mary's couple changes. And if we think it's going to be longer than that, I'd rather vote on Mary's changes now, even though we'd have to file twice.
So your next meeting, March 25th, and I don't see any reason why town council couldn't have it squared away by then.
And how hard of a look does everyone want to look at the rest of the rules and procedures? I mean, Mary brings up a great point. I do want to get that in there. And I'm not sure what the scope of town council's review of our current rules and procedures are.
So there was an item or two that I raised to them as questionable from a legal perspective, in that the rules that you have printed don't well align with the provisions of 40A
Sure.
and with board policies and practices that should be in play. And so my concern was to have town council look at that, because you, for example, have something called reconsideration in your rules right now. And as the board knows, if you don't take a vote on a hearing, you have to continue it to a future date and time certain. The way your rules are written right now, it does not indicate that. So it's important, I think, for the board to have, I think, legal eyes look over the rules and procedures just to make sure that everything is as accurate as it should be.
Thank you, Noreen. Yeah, so I'll leave it to the board. Like I'm happy to vote on Mary's changes, but for the rest of it, I don't know what the board's intention was, just waiting to hear back from town council regarding a few of those items, or if we were anticipating more of a major overhaul of the rules and procedures.
I think we may eventually do an overhaul of the new procedures. I'd probably prefer just to vote in Mary's tonight, only because I know how extensions go and departments get busy. And I know we'd probably like to, not have to do it twice if it's not a lot of work to do it twice. Is there a possibility on voting on her changes tonight and putting a date of that change in so that we can also vote next week if there's any future changes?
Sure. So you can vote the changes that Mary has proposed tonight. I guess the only thing that might be a little bit weird, but though maybe it's not, is that you would typically, after rules and procedures are voted, you would file them with the town clerk's office. And that, when you vote to further change the rules and procedures, you would file again with the town clerk. So, I don't imagine that it matters if, the timeline was, whichever way you want to do it. I just didn't know if you wanted to go through that action of filing with the town clerk twice.
Noreen, if we vote those, do we have to post those for how long before the next meeting?
I don't know that there's a timeline. I don't think that, I think once you vote them, that they go into effect. And
Okay.
you file them with the town clerk so that the town is notified that those are the rules as of the particular date.
So my concern is that if we're looking at the rest of the procedures, we have to have discussions about those procedures as a group, and we have to agree to the changes, and we might have more changes we want even beyond what is being proposed by Noreen. So my preference is to go ahead and vote it and then post it. And I don't see any problem with having to file twice. It just means that, well, what if legal comes back and there's more back and forth, and then instead of 2 weeks, it becomes months, then we don't have the change.
Great point, Mary. Because my gut feeling is that we're going to be looking at the rest of the rules and procedures, and I'm guessing it's going to be a few months before we make the other major revisions. Ken, how do you feel? Oh, you're muted, Ken. Sorry.
Yes. I make a motion that we vote on it now.
I think we should wait and do it all at once.
All right. Ed, how do you feel, Ed?
I'd say vote for it now because it could drag out for 6 months before we get to the next one.
All right. Scott?
I can go either way with it, whatever the board, I mean, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I just have a question about what we're voting before I vote it. Does that mean there is zero wiggle room in the 7 business days?
I need to pull up the language. Mary, do you have it in front of us, or Noreen, could you? I just lost it on my phone. I need to pull it up again. Or does anyone have it in front of them? Because my phone's being a little non-cooperative.
Yeah, they must submit within 7 business days in advance.
So when it happens and they don't, and they try to push that issue, what is the response from us?
It's a continuance to the next meeting.
Right at that point. So they'll get on the docket to be heard, to ask for forgiveness or whatever, and at that very point, it gets extended. Zero tolerance.
Yep.
I guess the only thing I would bring up to the board is we do have circumstances where following receipt of a referral, such as from engineering, they may suggest that someone add dry wells. And so many of the applicants will rush back to their engineer and ask them to add dry wells to the plan. That being said, I guess I would suggest to you that someone adding dry wells to a plan is not a material change for which you should continue. Certainly I think if somebody produces 50 pages of text 2 days before the hearing, that's clearly a case that you would want to continue. I guess I would just advocate that the board maintains some flexibility, but I think on the other side, it certainly is notice to the applicants that you do intend to continue their case if they don't present material on time.
But that's not how Mary's proposal is written.
Okay, so here's the argument. We are required under state law to have reviewed all of the information before it comes to us and we vote on it. If you get, and we've gotten it before, 40 pages on that Thursday morning, or even that Wednesday before we meet, what are you going to do? Can you discuss it? No, because you can't vote on it. So why not wait 7 days in order to have the information so that you can absorb it, read it, and comply with what we are supposed to do as a board? I don't see where that's an onerous thing to ask. And we continuously have applicants who provide us with all sorts of information. It happens every single week before we meet, an incredible amount of information to go through. And it's not fair to this board because we can't give it, I don't believe, adequate attention, even if it's a dry well. I mean, you have to take the plan, you have to compare it, you have to look at an email or go to the website. It's a lot of work.
Mary, can I ask a question?
Sure.
With your argument, which I agree with, what's the difference than what we just did tonight? Listening to a case with not all the pertinent information, looking at a plan that wasn't the one we were talking about, and continuing with the hearing. What is the difference?
I'm afraid I don't understand your question.
Well, I'm just
Do you
saying,
think
if we're going to split hairs on what we can review and what we can't in order to continue a case or not continue one, I think we have to have more specificity in what we're asking for.
I think it's pretty clear what we're asking for.
Well, I guess
So
I think the question you have,
how are we going to enforce that?
okay, I think the question you have is if something comes to us where, and I've heard you say it before, we have an incomplete application for a special permit, and you've noticed, and even a 40B application where it wasn't complete. And
Right.
that's a different case, in my opinion, than what this is. This is that your application, you're not making changes to it. So we have an application, then we have changes to an application, then we might have more changes to an application. And it just gets a little bit crazy to figure. I've heard Ken just recently say, I don't have that. Can you show it to me? Because he doesn't have it he hasn't been able to locate it because we're shuffling so much around. If you feel comfortable operating this way, vote no on it. But what you're talking about is an entirely different thing, which is the application is not complete. And when it's not complete, why should we discuss it until an application is complete? But to me, that's a different question of changing our rules.
I think the other part too is that there are essentially separate rules that do apply to comprehensive permits as opposed to all the other cases you hear. And that given the amount of time that the state allows for a 40B and the rules around that, I would advocate that if there's something missing, that you do go ahead and request the applicant provide that. But I would not recommend wholesale continuances of a 40B hearing if the applicant has not provided all of what you're looking for.
Okay, so on the application that we have, Town of Falmouth Zoning Board of Appeals application for comprehensive permit. This is under 40B. Your first line is, please note that the Board of Appeals requires a complete application to be filed. Any application that the board finds incomplete shall receive an automatic denial of a comprehensive permit. That's
Okay,
what it
so-
says, right on
Correct.
it.
Correct. But here's,
Applicants and their agents are strongly encouraged to work with the staff of the board to ensure that their application is ready for filing.
I guess what I would tell you is that application preceded me. And not that it's an excuse, but I would suggest, and perhaps you want to have a further conversation with town council. And I know that I've been working on 40Bs for over 20 years, and the state will advise you that even if you find that something is incomplete, that it is the board's duty to timely open the hearing, because otherwise you could wind up with a constructive grant. So while I understand that there is that text there, I would suggest that it's not up to date.
I think it's understood that if an application of 40B comes in, we all understand that you have to open the hearing. But once you open the hearing, you don't have to go forward if they don't have an application complete. And that's what we're getting into. I think Mary's rules and conditions are different. We're not looking at it as we're dealing with these 40Bs. And if a referral came in that asked for dry wells, those referrals are not showing up 2 days before. They're seeing these plans in advance unless that applicant has never sent them the plans. They get that information way in advance. And every single week that this board in the last year we have gotten stuff a day before a hearing or 2 days before a hearing. And we are supposed to be able to review, complete all the information so that we don't get here and say, wait a second, can you turn to page 3? What was in page 4? What does this waiver request mean? We're getting into those situations because we aren't given the time to review anything. And applicants know that. And a lot of these changes, we've seen stuff in the last 2 weeks where these changes were done earlier, but then they just appear. And they appear because they know we aren't going to be prepared for it. We're going to be pushed for time. We all want to get out of here at some point. And that's what happened. So we told applicants way at the beginning of this year that we were going to hold to them submitting the information in advance. And we haven't held to it at all. We've made exception after exception after exception. And at some point, it just becomes too much.
It's been going on forever.
But that's what I mean. But we gave them notice this year we were going to do it, and
we've given them notice every year, and it still creeps back into it because they're running under the situation the way it's written, the semantics. Right.
This makes it very clear. You got 7 business days. You don't get it within the 7 business days. We're going to continue to the next date. It doesn't comply to the 40Bs. But it puts everyone on the equal playing field, allows us to look at all the information that's supported and ask questions. And if the applicants understand that in advance, they'll deal with it. But right now they know they don't have.
No disrespect. I understand what you're telling me. My question was, how do we enforce it, and are we willing to enforce it?
So the way this change would be written, if it's submitted less than 7 business days before the hearing, it's continued to the next date.
Thank you.
Just to understand that will still require the vote of the board. So
no, I understand.
In order to continue.
Well, the question I have is will this lead to constructive grants?
So I think as long as we are watching timelines, it's not an issue. That being said, if you have someone who continues multiple times, you would have to express within the decision if that becomes an issue of timing. You'll have to express that the board is denying or whatever else the action is based on not receiving the requested information. So we do within the office make sure that we're keeping an eye on timelines, but clearly if you continue a case multiple times, you do have to watch out for that.
Right. And it forces the issue of potentially denying a project, really.
Right,
Well,
but I wonder, TJ, if that happened and we denied a project where we actually had the information submitted less than 7 days before a meeting, but therefore refused to vote on it, and they appealed, would the courts sustain our appeal, or would they say, "Hey, you had it 2 days, you had it 5 hours before the hearing opened"? But you had it.
Good question.
So according to the classes that I have taken, that we all were notified about, they repeatedly, in more than one of the classes I took, said that when what you basically do is say to people, look, you have to get it in on time with the deadline approaching, or it will be denied. And then people will do what they're asked to do. And this is being done across the state.
Did they?
This is standard operating procedures.
That's great. If that's the case, I'm all for it.
All right. Scott, did you have
because
something
the
there?
alternative.
I was just curious if there was any if there was any case law defining what Ken's question was.
I don't have a clue. If you want to ask somebody like TJ to research it, you go ahead and do it. You have an application even on 40Bs that's telling you that if you don't do it, you can be denied, on the applications. I don't see where this is that onerous of a thing. I mean, you have people who come before you, it keeps happening, where they say, oh, I'm sorry, but let me talk about it anyway. You cannot vote on cases if you haven't had time to review everything. And I remember a time when somebody provided 40 pages the day before or the day of the hearing. And you have to start wondering if they did that on purpose so that they'd get a continuance. And if you guys are fine with it, go right ahead. This is silly.
My question was simply, are we prepared to enforce it if we voted? That was my initial question.
Well, you'd have to enforce it, and
I
you're
am.
enforcing it because it's continued. That's the hammer.
And speaking of our procedures, if we're amending it with Mary's changes, it does require the affirmative vote of 4 members. So just throwing that out there too. Yeah, Ed's nodding yes. Bob, I know you're in favor. Mary? Ken, how do you feel? Are you?
Yeah, no, I'm in favor. The only thing I was worried about, look, who could not be in favor of having adequate time to look at stuff and getting it all ahead of time versus this strat? But, sometimes they say it's just, oh, so-and-so didn't give me the material until just, yesterday.
Right.
That's
Well,
the famous.
that might cut down on those excuses, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So I guess what would happen is, you'd say, okay, we'll come to case 47. We just received new material within 7 days, and we won't even take any testimony. We'll just say who moves to continue to blah, blah, blah day.
Exactly. All right. Would there be a motion then?
So then I'd
Mary?
make a motion to accept the changes that Mary proposed regarding submittals.
Second it.
All right. Motion was made by Bob and seconded by Ed. Roll call vote from everyone again. Scott?
Scott Zelinski, aye.
Mary?
Mary Berry, aye.
Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Thank you, Ed. Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Ken?
Ken Forman, aye.
And TJ Hurry, aye. Passes unanimously. Mary, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary.
All right, board discussion. There is something I did want to bring up, and if you give me a couple of minutes, I know we're running up against our deadline here. But this weekend, I was on Facebook. I came across a post on one of those local Facebook groups. A member of the public had copied and pasted his recent transmission to the planning board, and he had encouraged others to share their opinion as well. And this was regarding the solar bylaw revisions. So I read through the thread that the member of the public had posted, and he was honestly facilitating a respectful discourse of all the issues involved. That was until I read a current member of the planning board stated, quote, "It seemed like you had all made up your mind before the debate had started. So have the ZBA 300 committee, the energy committee. Why bother having a town meeting? Let's run the town on Facebook." To the member of the public's credit, he replied, "I don't think a public determination was made. It seems rather folks, other regulatory and volunteer boards are simply voicing opinions, whether in a personal or professional scope. I support and hope these inputs, referrals would help assess the developer and aid town meeting making informed decisions rather those on impulse." So to that member of the public, I say thank you. I don't want to speak on behalf of the board, but I certainly think it was the intent of this board to express our support for renewable energy in this town with the existing bylaw in place, while also identifying the number of issues with the proposed bylaw, notably and predictably setbacks from this board. Of course, I do acknowledge the fact that negotiation and compromise prior to an article being brought on the floor of town meeting is encouraged. I certainly think it's important, given especially the restraints of this virtual setting that we're all in because of COVID. I was disappointed, and it's been bothering me since the weekend to read those comments from that member of the planning board. I do consider those remarks disparaging, not only to the member of the public, but to this board and the other boards as well. And I'm honestly wondering whether it was ethical for that board member to make those representations online outside of a public hearing, when his very board was considering those proposals. What's even stranger is that those comments were made after the applicant before the planning board had proposed revisions, but they were before this week, before the planning board ultimately endorsed those bylaws. So those are my thoughts regarding that. It's been bothering me since the weekend. I just wanted to bring that up and let the board know. Ken?
You reach out to their chair?
No, not yet. I wanted to bring it to...
No, I say, do you?
Oh, do I? It's been a while since I've had communication. We haven't talked about these bylaws specifically, but I have in the past.
It might be optimal that it go in through the town manager or town council's office if there's a question about meeting state ethics requirements.
All right, well, not only that, but yeah. Ken?
So first of all, it was a public hearing, and
right.
They invite input. So we made input.
Exactly.
And what we actually said in the input was we are for, we're for renewable energy and solar, and we like the bylaw you already wrote. We didn't say.
Right. And not only that, Ken.
Anything disparaging, number one. Number two, I think they got a lot of feedback on the proposed articles, and the petitioners have modified substantially the amount of modification, have reduced their request for how much clearing and so forth is permitted. So apparently that input had some positive consequences.
Right. And those comments on Facebook weren't done until after that, which makes it all the more peculiar.
Well, I'm always thank my lucky stars that I decided never to do Facebook.
And neither do I.
I thought it was an invasion of privacy, and time is proving me right.
TJ, you mentioned how it bothered you over the weekend in the board. Because one of the problems is what we submitted, people wouldn't know that we were supporting renewable energy. People wouldn't know what the issues were because, quite frankly, they didn't read the letter. They just gave some summaries of what they thought the other people were discussing. So, that's why I had that question last week, whatever. Can we submit what our letter was at the time? Because my worry was that what we were submitting, which were very, easy comments, would be taken completely out of context and turned around like they have been.
And apparently they were.
And it wasn't, just us, 300 committee, and I think it was renewable energy, same thing. They submitted letters and those comments weren't given to the public either. So, or read into a record. They were, they picked and choose to summarize. So.
And that board member, I went back and I watched FCTV. That board member specifically objected to even acknowledging that they received those letters, and from who. Forget about reading them in. I understand they operate under different rules than us, especially when they're considering warrant articles, but he was objecting even to that.
There is another opportunity, obviously, if and when this comes up for vote, to either endorse or, raise whatever concerns we might still have with the petition article. One thing I heard on Tuesday night was, and Noreen might be able to confirm or deny this, that town meeting, they're going to have an abbreviated town meeting, and they're not going to take up any articles except money articles on April.
That is correct. It's my understanding that on April 12th, they are just going to discuss a couple of fiscal articles and that town meeting will be disbanded for the purpose of being able to start work on those financial issues, because otherwise, if you continue town meeting, it's my understanding that any articles that may have been voted you still can't put them into play until town meeting's actually disbanded. So it's my understanding that town meeting will be opened on April 12th, and that it will be disbanded, and then there will be another town meeting scheduled for June, I believe it is.
Right. So this is all going to get delayed substantially anyway.
Potentially. All right, so that was my big update. Thanks for entertaining me.
Yeah. Thanks
Anything
for
else?
confirming my view of Facebook.
Anytime, Ken. Anything else for board discussion? All right, board updates. Future agenda items. All right, that's it. See everyone back here March 25th. Have a good night.